Robservations with Meyer Burnett.
Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, yada, 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 Meyer Burnett. And this is the third episode of a show that changes names as many times as I change my underwear during the day. This is Midnight Musings. And, of course, it wouldn't be a show without my two co-hosts, and 1/6 scale man himself, Lael Rockwell. Lael,
how you doing?
How are you both today?
Very
Great.
well. Very
Great.
well.
Great.
And I've been packing up my 6 scale figures. I was just showing this to. I'm not gonna open it, but Fight Club 2-pack, man. Fight Club 2-pack. I mean, between the Ghost
that's
of
like
Tsushima,
a grail piece, bro.
dude. It is. It's 2, and it comes with a chair. So, and
That's
that
a
have
grail
you
piece,
seen
bro.
that Ghost of Tsushima figure? You've seen people unbox
Yes, I
it.
did.
But
Yes, I
my God,
it's amazing.
It's
It's amazing.
Unreal.
Yeah, it is. It's worth the price of admission, man.
But when we move, I'm gonna have to change up the shelf space here to. Everything's gonna be different.
Gotcha.
The Robservations is gonna be different. So, I figured tonight's subject. There's been a lot of bitching and moaning and complaining about Lord of the Rings again. You know, the touchstones that we all hear about. But I got a letter. I got a letter in the mail. First of all, this community is the greatest community on YouTube.
Yes.
If I do, I know,
Yeah.
I know the 6 scale community is great, but the imagination connoisseurs, the Post-Geek singularity never failed to disappoint. And I got a really interesting letter, and I figured I would start tonight's show with the letter because it is a new fan to the channel, and it's his first letter that he wrote. And he wrote this 2 days ago on the 17th, so he wrote it on Thursday.
Okay.
What's up, Rob, Mike, moderators, and anyone associated with the network? My name is James Williams, and I'm a new fan and admirer of the channel, and I just wanted to say thank you to you all for your willingness to be upfront and honest about certain issues and topics and not shying away from those topics like some people do. I love sci-fi, adventure, fiction stories of all kinds, and as I get older, I find it strange some of the conversations that I see taking place across the land of some of the major properties we all love. As an almost 40-year-old black man, I love Star Wars and Star Trek and Marvel and DC and Lord of the Rings, and I've consumed as much material as I could during my lifetime. However, I find myself split down the middle on the big issue of now adding diversity to films and shows, and watching the arguments from both sides really saddens me. I'm not a fan of switching characters just to do it or just for the sake of having color or representation and then destroying the true lore or story of those same characters, but then I sit back and I look at the forest as a whole instead of some select trees, and I see that I still don't understand why people get so upset because a brown, black, Asian, female, or gay character was added to a property they enjoy. I love Star Wars, but you can't tell me that Lando, Mace Windu, and the black pilot that got blown up in Return of the Jedi are the only brothers walking around space. Just like in Marvel, you can't tell me that Sam Wilson, who earned his spot, and War Machine are the only black male superheroes in the MCU. Luke Cage waiting on you, bro. I never want to see a black Luke Skywalker, just like I never want to see a black Captain Kirk, because that would be blasphemy. But I don't understand why so many people are against opening up the door a bit. I'm sure you're watching all the division over the Lord of the Rings trailer, and I will reserve judgment until I see it, but it hurts my heart that so many people are against it just because we saw a black elf shoot an arrow in the dark. Sorry for the long email, that wasn't my intention, but just thank you for talking about some of the tougher issues that you do. And Rob, I love that Frederick Douglass sticker on your microphone. It's fucking dope, brother. Keep up the great work and all that you do. I will be tuning in more. Thank you. Sincerely, a fan for life, James Williams. Obviously, I figured you two would be perfect to discuss this topic with rather than just go it alone. But I want to say thanks to James for writing this letter. I love these kinds of letters. I love the fact that people feel that they can write these letters to this channel. It means a great deal to me. But that's the whole basis of this channel is to have conversation and talk. And I want to start this conversation by telling you guys, I'm going to tell you something I don't normally tell people. But, Star Trek is my jam. My whole life I've loved Star Trek. And I was adopted into a Jewish family, but I was raised a Jew. And I always believed that Vulcans, from the time I was a little kid, were Jewish. I always thought the Vulcans were the space Jews because my grandfather bared a striking resemblance to Leonard Nimoy and Mark Leonard, who played Sarek, Spock's father. And then as we met more Vulcans on the original series, like in Amok Time, we met Celia Lovsky, who played T'Pau, the ruler of the Vulcan people, and then even Arlene Martell, who played T'Pring, Spock's betrothed. I don't think she was Jewish, but she kind of looked Jewish. So for me, Vulcans were space Jews, and I kind of like that because that's how I identify them. I don't know if that was intentional on the writer's part, but in my mind, I always thought that was the case. But as we moved through Star Trek, and in Star Trek II, we met Savik, who was half Vulcan, half Romulan. I could go with it. She looked like some Jewish girls I knew. But then when we got to like Robin Curtis in Star Trek III replacing Savik, I'm like, I don't know, man. She doesn't look so Jewish to me anymore. And then as we moved through the Star Trek franchise, the idea of casting actors that looked Jewish kind of went by the wayside. And then, of course, in Voyager, we got Tim Russ playing Tuvok, who was black, and he was also Vulcan. That was new and unusual. But I thought his performance was so great that I didn't care. It didn't. And so the Star Trek franchise sort of, in my mind, from the time I was a little kid, I watched it sort of evolve, like a certain look to the characters. I came to grips. I still believe that certain people know how to play Vulcans and certain people don't. Tim Russ did a really good job playing a Vulcan. Not a lot of people understand how to do it. So I don't normally talk that way about, in my own mind, about Vulcans as being the space Jews of the world. But that was just something because Mr. Spock looked like my grandfather, who was a German Jew, Ralph Schoenfeld. And but as I watched Star Trek growing up, I had this sort of epiphany, and there was a lot of other different kinds of actors who played Vulcans in Next Generation and in Deep Space Nine and Voyager and Enterprise. And now when you get to Star Trek Discovery and Picard, there's a lot of representation, sometimes to its detriment, but there's a lot. So I throw the question out to the two of you. With this Lord of the Rings controversy, and with more and more people like our reader and our watcher, James, said, what's wrong with throwing the door open to people? Why not? Why not have all different kinds of representation? What do you think?
You want to go first?
Yes, I will go first. And Robert, I did just want to ask, did you make Tom Jr. Jackson a mod?
I did not.
I was just checking. Thank you. I'm sorry to bring it up again, but
Yep.
what I was going to say is
mod.
what's interesting. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, Tom, he did it. What's interesting about this question, and I think what happens for me, I think there's two trains of thought, at least the way I'm looking at it. And the first thing is that what we've been seeing is that we've been seeing different changes to stories, whether they're historical or whether they're not. So with a historical story, we would expect, let's say, to the best of our knowledge, for let's say races and genders to stay the same. And we have, relatively speaking, been seeing that, except for the one where they cast a Black woman as Anne Boleyn in a recent, I guess, PBS or some other show.
It was a British show for the BBC.
Right. And, they claimed that she was the best actress for the job. But historically, she's not an accurate portrayal of the character. And so, it's kind of like a question of historically, is it right to cast people who are different race and gender representing a different historical figure? And this is a question that a lot of people have had, because actors can wear makeup and change their appearance, but she did not do that. She may have been the best actress for the position, but she didn't change her look. So she didn't look historically like the character in question. And so that's something that I think that for some characters, like if someone were playing Frederick Douglass, historically, and a man of African descent, people would want to see someone who looks like they have African descent playing Frederick Douglass. I don't think anybody would want to see something different from that. So historical figures, that's their own category. And we kind of, that's something that had been coming up, and who should or shouldn't play an actress that looks a certain way. These are all kind of very, issues that people are talking about. And I think that depending upon the situation, essentially actors are just going to go ahead and play that role and try and look like the person in question. But if we're going to have situations where they're playing someone and they don't look anything like that individual, that's another question that we have to ask ourselves when it comes to casting, and we're trying to find someone who looks like someone. Is it important for us to find someone who looks like that character? What's the importance of doing that? And I do also want to mention, to add to that, some Shakespeare plays, which can be historical, there's some historical ones, do often have people who are not historically that gender or ethnicity playing roles. And they're still very popular. Like no one says, well, Henry V is not this person, or, very rarely does it come up as an issue. I think, in fact, Denzel Washington just did a Macbeth the other day, right?
Yeah.
And everybody's talking about how great it is, and it's wonderful. And no one's saying Macbeth cannot be this, but
you can only play
for
a
some of the
fellow.
I'm sorry.
You can only play a fellow.
Well, Othello is another example of a Shakespeare play where people, regardless of their ethnicity, have been playing the role of Othello. So, we know that to be the case. And, it's been a very successful, it's one of the most successful plays, Shakespearean plays. But, it is something to think about. And, where we kind of get these exceptions to the rule, or where things change. Now, what is also very interesting is this. When you have a piece of work that's a magnum opus, as far as I'm concerned, Lord of the Rings and everything that Tolkien has written is like a magnum opus. He was a linguistic genius who created a very unique piece of work. And, we don't see pieces of work like this every day. It's not sort of like going to the bookstore and finding a fantasy novel. This thing is practically, like its own type of entity. And its uniqueness is what has attracted people to it. Now, for me, as far as I'm concerned, if they want to go ahead and add other characters, they can do that. My concern really is two things when it comes to the Lord of the Rings. One, if you are going to add different genders, then go ahead and put your best effort forward and make them look spectacular. Two, if you're going to add different races, do the same, but keep the story that we know, that we would expect, that makes sense, and maintains a proper approach to this. So, for example, they have this elf, and the man who plays the elf, he's a very attractive man. He's so attractive.
I wish I looked like him.
But honestly, like when I looked at some of the photographs and pictures of what they put some of these characters in, I felt like the costumes were not what they could have been. And, Robert, you do this Hollywood podcast for costumes, and, you're speaking to these with Martika Rivera, who also did the costumes for Die Hard, right, Robert?
Oh, that's a Marilyn, who's the Martika's
Marilyn
daughter.
Vance, excuse me. Marilyn Vance, who does who did the costumes for Die Hard. But also, you're speaking to people who are doing period pieces and costume pieces that require a lot of work, a lot of concentration, and I think, I was talking to other people this week about this, the idea that you're going to be designing certain costumes for certain situations. And, when it falls short, let's say perhaps the costumes are spectacular, but marketing has decided to take costumes and a let's say a trailer that doesn't build up to the level of the quality of the work. Oftentimes we get, a lot of people saying, well, I'm not quite sure whether I want to watch that. It doesn't really seem exciting or, like any kind of fantasy sense. But for me, the biggest thing too is you always got to make these characters look as fantasy-like as they should be. This is a fantasy story. And if you have an elf, it doesn't have to be exactly the same as what Peter Jackson did, but I noticed that he did this thing where he put this, whenever you would see the elves, they would have like this glow about them. And it was regardless of what they look like, that was something that I really liked about that movie, was that it didn't really matter what the person looked like, whether they were the best looking person in the world or, let's say just average or whatever way you want to describe them. He still made them seem like they were otherworldly. And if the elves are supposed to be like this, if they have that sense, and if that's, according to what Tolkien wanted these elves to be like, these, godlike creatures, if you will, to everyone else, they would appear to be this way. And regardless of their appearance, they would always have this certain sense about them. And if you look at the way that they costumed this man, who's very, very attractive, this guy is hot. They made him look like a pauper almost. He doesn't even look like, someone who can afford a sandwich. It was just like this, the most embarrassing thing they did to him. And this is an attractive man. This guy is like, like if you went to a club, he could get a date with you and get your number. This is so ridiculous.
Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yes. Well, I think it's so ridiculous that they would take him. He's naturally attractive. And then, people are kind of, joking around about how he looks like a Don Lemon. And I get that. And that's cute. But when his photographs while he's in the production phase, or this is post-production marketing phase of this series, should be spectacular. And I should be like, oh my God, this guy, just like when I first saw Legolas, I was like, wow, he looks pretty good. It should be that. There are even some scenes, where he's kind of looking at this woman and it's not even a romantic, the way that it should be in regards to fantasy, like they have this love and it's forbidden. And, she would be gently caressing his face and he would be touching her, lovingly. And you would be like, wow, this looks really intense. They really love each other. And it's a fantasy, she's falling in love with this creature that's so incredible. And, she's this beautiful woman and he's falling in love with her, but they're not supposed to. Great. Go ahead, make it forbidden, but make it spectacular so that I'm interested in it. I want to go along with the ride. I want to believe this. The story itself, from what you're telling me, from what I'm seeing, is not convincing me. If the story doesn't go along with these changes, then all of a sudden the whole thing falls apart. And we don't want to be disappointed in this stuff. We know they spent millions and millions of dollars on this. But at the same time, we've been seeing great fantasy. Let's face it, Peter Jackson's portrayal of this was perfect. When he did King Kong, it was like you could see the range and the ability in this person. And now, we're presented with what is supposed to be something that's either based or loosely based on the same idea. It feels more like, Narnia than Lord of the Rings. It doesn't feel very fantasy-like. The almost comical in some parts. The woman who's supposed to play the elf, she should be in a full gold gown with gold, threads going through her hair. And she should be dripping with gold to a point where, it's like, wow, they really did have a gold tradition where gold is just, it is the thread that her clothes are made out of. That's how much gold they have. It's an afterthought. It's like, well, we have so much gold, it's almost, not even worth it that much anymore, but we just use it for everything. And it should be everywhere on her body should be encased in this spectacular glow of gold where you're like, wow, you know what I mean? Like, just, that's what I was kind of hoping to see. Some of the positions that, as I mentioned, and I'm going to wrap my comments up, some of the positions that the photographs are taken are also like not the most becoming photographs. Like my mother always told me never to sit with your hand between your legs. Like that's not the way that you're supposed to sit. My mother's like, don't do that. Always cross your legs and put your hand on your lap with one hand over the other. Okay,
That's
I will do that.
interesting.
Well, it was not an attractive photograph. And even the profile that they took, this beautiful woman, and they took a photograph of her. I wasn't that impressed. The Galadriel character, her armor was okay, but it really did look like a Jean-Paul Gaultier gown. you know, like the curve of it. And I wasn't, you know, I just want to be brought into the moment. I want them to bring us into the fantasy. And for me, you know, they're not doing that. And, you know, it's fine if they go ahead and change some things. We're going to expect changes. It can't be 100%, right, Robert?
No.
It just can't be, you know, like we know that, but you know, bring us along in the fantasy so that we have something to believe in. And I think that that's what's been happening. They've been falling short in a lot of that. And then people will go ahead and question, well, this wasn't even there. Now, there is a train of thought of people who feel that, you know, the original series should have had it in there, you know, but honestly, that falls into the same train that I believe. I said, well, you know, that's okay. Go ahead and make your own and add whatever you like. But, you know, it's kind of pointless to go back and say, well, this is what was wrong with it. You know, we have to fix this. Like it's not necessarily anything that holds very much weight when they could do this version and, you know, like knock it out of the park with something that would just wow us. And we would say, wow, this is not exactly like Tolkien, but it sure is good. So that's what my thoughts are about that.
I have many thoughts, but I want to go to Lael first. You know, what I find so interesting about all of this stuff is, and what James Williams said in his letter, and I think he's right. I mean, you know, in a galaxy a long time ago and far, far away that is full of all kinds of crazy aliens and astromech droids and protocol droids and all kinds of droids and aliens, why is it that we got Mace Windu, Lando Calrissian, and one fighter pilot in an A-wing, and I think it was A-wing that gets blown up in Return of the Jedi? Where are the brothers in the galaxy? Like, why was it? So, I mean, obviously there's production issues, but you know, when you don't see that, and there's a lot of lack of diversity. I mean, the human population on the planet Earth was not well represented in the first 3 Star Wars films. Yet, did that ever diminish your enjoyment of those movies?
No. Like I said, so first thing is when it comes to you know, this, you know, Lord of the Rings.
Can you give me a
Rings of
little
Power.
more volume?
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Can
that's
you hear
good.
me now?
Oh yeah, that's great.
Okay. So when it comes to these, you know, especially when it comes to you know, Lord of the Rings, you know, Rings of Power, I have to kind of reserve a lot of comments until I've actually, you know, my thoughts on it until I've actually seen it. I am of the belief that I have to see it first to really understand where they're going as far as the narrative. So that's kind of where I sit with it. You know, I'm not one to pass judgment on it first until I've actually seen it to understand that maybe there's a reason why certain things are being done and presented, or the visual is the way it is. So once I see it, then I can actually form that level of opinion. I will say that Ismail Cruz, you know, who basically, like, I've actually literally followed his work for a while. He is Hispanic. You know, at first, like, basically he's Puerto Rico. He's from Puerto Rico. You know, he is, you know, he does have African American, you know, descent, but he is from Puerto Rico, born in Puerto Rico, moved to New York years ago. I actually followed a couple of his, you know, because he did a lot of theater as well. So he's accomplished on that level because, like I said, he can bring the range. I know what he can actually do, and I'm hoping that they give him the ability to showcase that range on this show, because he's a talented dude. Like, he literally is. So I mean, that, you know, goes without question. I here's the thing, like, when we cross this line of conversation, I am of the belief that there are a lot of opportunities missed when you don't at first present things, when you have a chance to present, you know, characters, or, you know, install a bit of diversity in your films, and you don't do it, and then you wait till later to do it, and then it sparks the conversations. Because, to be quite honest, when we watched Lord of the Rings, there was a lot of ethnicity in there. Unfortunately, it was Orokai, because basically they filmed this in New Zealand. There were a lot of Tongan, Maui individuals who were actually under those masks,
Right.
you know what I mean, because of the build, and they, you know, did what they could at that point. They didn't install, because we are under the belief that the way Tolkien wrote these books, that there weren't that much, or we're not looking at the visual. Put it this way, like, We're looking at the way the words were written. It didn't say anything about ethnicity. It didn't talk about it. It just talked about the different tribes, the different, so that's what we know. You know what I mean? This wasn't presented in the film. They had an opportunity to do it, because I'm gonna tell you what, if it was presented that way on film, then we probably wouldn't have had these conversations now, moving forward. We wouldn't have had it. That's not to say that I'm taking away from the simple fact that he's created a great body of work. I'm just think that it was a missed opportunity to do it there. So if there's backlash, I would really, really caution people to watch it first, experience it first, and you might see something spectacular. You know what I mean? That you may be like, I'm drawn into this show based off of this character's narrative and their journey, but we have to wait and see it first. But I think it was a missed opportunity that they didn't present ethnicity in the original films. With that basically being said, though, when I think about Marvel, when I think about Star Wars, when I think about a lot of these IPs, Star Trek got it right because, like I said, number one, it was presented in the very beginning. Like in the very beginning, they showed that level of diversity. They showed that basically it can mix and it can make sense, and it did. So I applaud them for that. Star Wars, we got a chance to see some of that with background characters, and Mos Eisley. Basically when we got a chance to first meet Luke and Ben. So we saw a bit of that. It's just that they weren't featured characters until we actually got films, until we got The Empire Strikes Back, and we got a chance to meet Lando. In Marvel, here's the thing: they've given us a lot of ethnicity, and they're trying to give us more based off of what was written in the books, and I applaud them for that. It's just that, okay, a lot of films that we see nowadays, like there was a film that I was watching the other day with Toya, and it was crazy because we had this conversation. I was like, yo, do you mean to tell me there was not one black person in this film? You mean to tell me there was not one Hispanic? And I'm like, yo, where is this? Like, what place is this? And I need to go see, because it's like it's non-existent. But what I'm saying is, like, films fail to put that in, and I'm wondering if it's the fear of backlash, if there's a fear of these type of conversations, you know what I mean, that we're having. I'm wondering if that could actually be one of the biggest things and the reason why these lines. We were talking, Rob, you should have been on, because was there with us. We were talking on the Aries show, the market chart, whatever. He was talking about characters and figures, and would we actually see a Grief Karga released. Now, we already know we have our feelings about hot toys in Hong Kong and the way they do certain things. But it just dawned on me when I think about these questions. I'm like, yo, like, wow, we're actually having these conversations still in the year 2022. You know what I mean? Like, it amazes me. But I think that we're having these conversations because it hasn't been fully fleshed out and presented well on camera, and there have been missed opportunities. So I
totally agree with you. Here's kind of, thank you. Sorry.
Bless
Here's kind of my
Definitely.
thoughts about, like, in terms of Tolkien's intent when he was writing Lord of the Rings, is he said he wanted England to have its own mythology. And he based a lot of the mythology of Middle Earth on Scandinavian tales. So it really was it was analogous to Northern Europe, which is a fairly white area of the world, especially when he was writing that. And he did write in there were lands, as people moved down south into the hotter regions, there were, darker skinned people. It's just he chose to focus on characters that were predominantly white in his mythology. But what's interesting is that's in the Third Age. Now in the Second Age, we're talking thousands of years before the Third Age. And to me, maybe people haven't quite settled in. Like, if you go to, I've talked about this before, when you go to Asia, there's not a lot of racial diversity there. When I was in South Korea, not a lot of racial diversity. My beloved, well, you can't see him in this frame, but I love samurai movies. I love Akira Kurosawa movies, and there is no diversity in samurai movies because at that time, in that part of the world, there was no diversity. So if you were to suddenly say, well, these samurai movies, there's too many Japanese people in them. We need to color it up and bring more people in. I would have a problem with that because it would ruin the authenticity, the verisimilitude of the movies themselves. And a lot of people would say
during that time period.
during that time
Exactly.
period, the Tokugawa shogunate period. Now, for me, you could put anybody you want in there. In my mind, that would sort of be problematic. You know, if problematic in the sense that I couldn't buy into that being a student and lover of that period of time, the Edo period or whatever. I love that stuff. And if you suddenly, like, if I was going to see some, you know, if you were going to see a Mexican samurai, I'd be like, well, that might be kind of cool if Robert Rodriguez was directing like a machete movie and machete in Japan. You know, you could do that, but historically it would bother me. Just like, and I don't know if that's a shortcoming of mine, but just because it would take me out of the movie. But in terms of like the second age of Middle Earth, I think that you could make an argument that anybody. You could have different ethnicities because maybe they're just passing through, you know, in Middle Earth, so we don't know what's going on. I was more disturbed by the fact that you have a black woman playing a dwarf who it doesn't have a beard, you know, because in Tolkien's world, dwarf women have beards, you know, and I was like, I understand why an actress might not want to do that. But the real question is, how much fealty do people have to the original text when doing these things? And I think that, you know, there's an argument to be made for trying to keep it authentic to Tolkien, but then someone's going to say, but Rob, it's fantasy, it's not real. But there was an intent that Tolkien had when he wrote the story, you know, that it was a myth for the UK and it was set during a time long ago. And I can understand why people look at those things. My real problem that I have with all of this is that, are you serving the story and the characters, or are you trying to do something else? Have you decided to become a crusader, and because of the time that we're living through, you are now putting, and here's another thing, that the creators who are the custodians of these franchises are now taking it upon themselves to almost, they're saying that they're better than the original creators and the original source material, and they're taking a teaching position almost. We're going to show you, we're going to add diversity to these things, even though it doesn't necessarily fit along the lines of what the original creator wanted to do. And that is where I start to sort of diverge from. We're seeing this everywhere, and it's not just we're seeing this kind of the creators that are the custodians of these properties that didn't create these properties are taking it upon themselves to change them to fit more along the lines with modern sensibility. And what I find so sort of insidious about that is they're taking a position that they know better than not just the creators but the audience. And why do they think they have to take it upon themselves, to teach us something? You know, and like, for instance, it's a bizarre line to take. Like when I watch Star Trek Discovery, for instance, it seems like I'm actually watching, they're visually segregating people within the frame. They're visually segregating people based on race, based on gender and sexuality. And it's very strange. When I watch The Expanse has an incredibly racially diverse cast. And a lot of the people that they cast are of mixed descent, which makes sense because once you move off of Earth into outer space, the national boundaries, the racial boundaries, the things that exist on our planet that have existed for a long time would cease to be important. Because once you leave Earth, you're just a human being. You know, questions of sexuality, questions of gender, questions of race will end in the infinitude of the cosmos because they no longer matter. And so the casting of The Expanse I loved because you had so many people that were of mixed race descent, and that seemed like the right thing that would happen hundreds of years in the future when humanity has moved off world. all of our petty differences, you're going to fall in love with all kinds of people. And you might be a white guy that's been attracted to sisters his whole life, but because of where he lived, he couldn't like date a black woman. But once you get into space, who gives a fuck? You know, you're going to fall in love with people you're going to fall in love with. And you know, it really depends. I mean, America is kind of strange because we're sort of isolated. When you go to other places, like you go to Europe, you know, you can get on a train, take a train for an hour and hop off in a country where they speak a different language. And there's a whole different background, historical background. The kind of racism that exists in America is not the kind of racism that exists in Asia, that is not the kind of racism that exists in Europe. I mean, the Asians hate each other. You know, I go to Asia, I'm like, why do you guys hate each other? Like, what's the problem? Well, you know, you talk to the Chinese about what the Japanese did to them in World War II. There's a lot of animosity, or the Koreans and the Japanese. I mean, there's a lot of the kinds of animosity. And for us, we're like, wow, that's interesting. And it really depends. I don't think that we hear a lot about racism in this country from our perspective. And it's a strange thing because we don't talk about it in terms of historical perspective, international perspective. It's bizarre to me that we have a very American point of view when it comes to sexism, racism, any kind of those isms. And you know, we talk about slavery. I don't think Americans realize slavery has existed for thousands of years in all different myriad forms, and it's going on even today. Yeah. And yet I understand we're moving through a period of time where we obviously have a lot of we have a huge portion of the American prison population is black by a wide margin. Why is that? That clearly there is something systemic going on that we need to take a hard look at. The fact that, you know, we don't invest in public education in African American communities the way that we should. African American communities have an inordinate single parent issue. You know, a lot of kids are growing up with a single parent, and why is that? And nobody wants to address these issues until something bad happens and someone dies in a public fashion. Then it's like, oh, what are we going to do? Well, why don't we solve the problem? Why not put good teachers into economically depressed areas and pay them enough money so there's an incentive there? Why not help parents who are single parents to have their kids get into after-school programs? Why not invest money into communities that really need it and lift people up out of those systemic problems? You know, not just race, but it has to do with class and poverty and education and family. And we don't want to do those things. And it's like, well, let's make sure that our TV shows are racially diverse. Well, that's not enough. That's not solving a problem. It's a beginning. But
there's definitely more that needs to be done. You know, and I think here's the thing: is like, you know, I remember like, you know, when it was announced that we were getting the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I'm just using that as a vehicle right now because it was the most recent show that there was a lot of backlash, and
which was wrong. I loved it. I thought they did such
they did a great job. But clearly, my thing was people haven't really, or they didn't understand or even go back and read source material to understand that this was something that was written. Now, here's my thing. I welcomed it. I was one of those who felt as though that Sam Wilson's story as the Falcon was so rich that it needed to be explored a bit more. Even in the comics, I felt as though that his story was so rich as the Falcon, and the Falcon himself, that character, was so rich. There were so many stories that he was like, in a sense, even in the books, you know what I mean? He was New York and Brooklyn's and New York and Harlem's, Captain America as the Falcon, but they didn't really need to change the name. Right. They didn't need to make him anything different. You know what I mean? He was just who he was at that particular point. It was so rich of a character to really dive into, but Marvel decided at that point that they wanted to actually take a totally different approach, and they made him Captain America. Okay, cool. It was in the books. They translated to film. Now, the reason why I basically bring that up is because I remember there was a lot of, even when we were watching, I watched the John Campea show when you were on it. John was like, no, there's only one Cap, and that Cap is Steve Rogers. Like, it's Steve Rogers. And I'm like, okay, but in the books, again, I don't get, he was like, I don't effing care about, okay, I get that. And I understand that. But you have to also remember it'd be something totally different if it wasn't in the books and they completely changed it in film. That's different. But it was in the books and they did that. But
and the costume they gave him at the end of it was right out of the comics.
out of the comics.
And I loved how close it was, man. There's a great cover of that actual suit, and they recreated it almost perfectly.
Yes, even basically they recreated the scene even when he was landing with all the cop cars and all the cars. That was a scene. It was a cover of a book, and they created it well. But my point is, we see that, and even with knowing that the narrative was straight out of the books, there was still backlash. There was still people who were complaining about the simple fact that our Captain America, no, that's not our Captain America, he's black, and they're using this because they're trying to create this whole woke narrative and this, that, and the third. I'm like, woke, like literally, I'm so that it makes me cringe when I hear that. Even agenda, like we talked about, like agenda on even like our comic book talk with friends, and Vinny had made a point that there's good agenda, there's bad agenda. There's an agenda and it can be used a certain way. But my point is, it's like there was so much backlash. Like we live in a society now where people aren't willing. We are unable, and I'm not saying that we're not willing. We're not unable, but we're not willing to accept change. You know what I mean? We're not really, because we get so comfortable with how things are that once they basically change, it's like, wait a minute, the world's going to basically end. Now, here's the thing. I can understand that. And I can understand where people can get upset because characters are changed, because there were even people, within my culture that were really upset at the simple fact that Falcon became the new Cap. They were like, wait a minute, like you're taking that character, a character that had so much character. I mean, it was like, there was so much background story behind this character that was important to the culture. Mm-hmm. You're taking him now and you're thrusting him into this new wave where now he's representing the red, white, and blue instead of what it meant to be Falcon, who was basically fighting for the country, but experiencing certain things that spoke to us as a culture and helped move us forward. And there were people that were really upset about that. I was like, okay, look, it happens, it changes. But now we still live in a world, and that's what I do not understand why in 2022 we are still having this conversation. But I think it's one of those things where, like I said, we, culturally, not just culturally, but just, the world itself, we've been brought up, and this thing it's passed through generations. You're brought up to believe one particular thing, is that. And my mother used to say, sometimes in certain places, they always used to say white is right, black is, whatever, you know what I mean? This, and I'm like, well, wow, like why is that? Because, I have some friends of my own, like a lot of friends. I have white friends, Hispanic, Asian, on all that. And we never looked at anybody as far as a race. No. We never looked at, it was never that was never discussion. Even when we read comic books, even when we went to the movies, sometimes we didn't really care what we saw on screen. We just enjoyed the narrative. We enjoyed the story. And what you brought up was really, really was right. If you write the story and the story is written well, and it serves the purpose of the story, of the movie that you're trying to present, or the characters, then okay, I get that. But if you're doing it clearly because you're trying to join an agenda, then that's going to poke out like a sore thumb. And people will basically see that. And then it's going to create those type of conversations where now it's even more divisive. Like now, we see in DC where, they are treading the lines of taking certain characters that have throughout history been one way, and they're changing the narrative on that character. And it's like, if you say you don't like it, then automatically you're attacked because you've grown up seeing this character a certain way, and now they're changing it because of a narrative, then you're attacked for that belief. Now, a lot of people have that, they have a right to basically feel that way. But if you basically say, okay, now we have an entire film and now they're sprinkling in black characters, Hispanic characters in this mythical world, and that's not right. And why are they doing that? Like, that just doesn't make any sense. How do you know? Like, how do you know? Like, if you're just reading a story on pages, you don't know what that writer really intended. His intentions were with that story. He might in his mind have had these races sprinkled around in these cultures, in these tribes, but just didn't actually say this is what they were. They're we have this black character playing this particular. No, they didn't say that because they just looked at him as representing a tribe. So you don't know how this person really wrote the story. But then when you see it fleshed out in film and you see it, it's like, oh, that's not right. How do you know?
Yeah, well, listen. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to say about Falcon and the Winter Soldier show, and I also love this show a lot, is that in regards to the character played by the Isaiah Bradley character, I guess, played by Carl Lumbly. I think, as far as I'm concerned, he was such an important part of this story that
Exactly.
I felt like they could have focused a little bit more on it. And, while they had a detriment about how they were going to end the story, and, that was a big deal, they had to rewrite it because they didn't want to talk about certain things due to the worldwide situation. I think that maybe the whole story should have just focused on him and, the Falcon kind of discovering what had happened and him realizing that, he did have a place in history and that he wasn't going to be excluded just because of how he looked. In fact, there were many soldiers like his, the elderly character and all the other soldiers that he rescued. And I think if we had gotten maybe three episodes solid on that, where he's kind of uncovers this truth, and maybe they also wrapped a little bit more of the story into what they were trying to hide, not just their ethnicity, but perhaps other experimentations that improve the program. And they didn't want people to know what they were doing, would have given it the weight that it deserved, because it was actually a very poignant story, but clearly, they kind of just touched on it. And I kind of felt like they didn't do right by him also, because I have nothing against Don Cheadle. I like him a lot. It's just that, he should have been nominated for that performance that he gave for that one character. I felt that he was the strongest character in the entire story.
Which one?
And
You mean
Isaiah Bradley's Isaiah Bradley.
Oh, you mean Carl Lumbly should have been nominated?
Carl Lumbly?
Yes.
Carl
The
Lumbly.
Isaiah Bradley character for me was the strongest character in the entire story.
Well,
in fact, just personally speaking, this is how I felt. And I felt that if they had made him more centralized of the story, it kind of would have given a little bit more weight to the importance of what was actually going on for, the Falcon character, let's say. Now, in regards to the ending of the story, the ending kind of fell short. And so, it's like inevitably, while I did enjoy the ending, had they focused more on the real actual story, as far as I'm concerned, which was that character's journey, and had also acknowledged his role as an actor and given him the nomination that he should have deserved, I think things would have been a little different across the board for that series. But, we got what we got, and, it is what it is. But, I think it fell short in being able to truly tell or represent the story the way it should have been in my eyes. So that's how I feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they had some production issues, so they had to juggle things around. But I wanted to speak about, the Truth miniseries, where the Isaiah Bradley character was introduced, and they delved into the Tuskegee experiments. What I thought it was audacious for Marvel to base a TV series around this. And, you basically had the Isaiah Bradley character represents all of the horrors that have been visited upon Black Americans, not just during the time of slavery, but post-slavery, and fighting for our country, and horrible things were done to Black soldiers. And when they came back, we didn't even allow Black soldiers who fought in World War II to avail themselves of the GI Bill here in this country. So the Isaiah Bradley character is so important in the show because he basically says, fuck this country, fuck these people. They will never treat you well. And he's got a point. And for me, I'm interested in great storytelling.
Yeah.
And the character of Isaiah Bradley represents, he's not, it's not making me feel bad. The history that they're touching upon happened, and
Yeah.
it goes on happening. And
Yeah.
the fact that Black America, even in Lael, you said in 2022, still it's not equal. You know, it just look at the incarcerations in this country. This is just, to me, this is just factual information that exists, and it's something that we don't want to necessarily deal with, or we want to pretend that it isn't going on. But what I loved about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I thought it was ballsy for a Marvel TV show about superheroes, that at the central core of this was Isaiah Bradley telling Sam Wilson, they'll fuck you. They don't want, they're not going to let a black man be Captain America. And Sam Wilson says, you know what? You're probably right. I understand exactly what you're saying. I understand the hundreds of years of horrors and injustice. But you know what? I'm going to do it anyway, because at some point, someone has to put their foot down. And he was a man that already fought just like Isaiah Bradley did, but he's already fought for the country. He worked with veterans. When he met Steve Rogers, he was working with veterans. And he embodies what true heroism is. You know that the people that you're going to help save hate you, but you're going to do the right thing anyway. And when he says that, you know, I'm like, this is what if Steve Rogers isn't going to be here, Steve Rogers would throw himself on a grenade to save another human being, regardless of what color they are. Sam Wilson has learned from the best, and he has learned, and he already had those qualities within him. That's why Captain America recognized that. And when he steps up and says, you know what, you are right. You were wrong. The world is a terrible, horrible place. But I am going to take it upon myself to do it. And I was moved by the end of that show. I was moved by Sam Wilson and what he was doing, because if we all don't think more along the lines of the way he does, we are all going to be lost. You know, we're all, and we're seeing it. We're seeing this country. If you thought, oh, things are getting better. Well, maybe some ways they are, but the last 5 years have proven that America has not come as far as we all like to believe we thought we had. And there's a few.
Go ahead.
There's a guy who's written in, specifically talking about what you said. I think it's Tarek Dingle or Tariq Dingle writes in, sent in 3 chats. He says, I totally agree with Lael about Sam as Cap. It feels disrespectful and dismissive of Sam and his blackness when people say he's not my Cap, or there's only one Captain America, and that's Steve. He goes on to say, the relationship between Isaiah and Sam and their conversations with each other perfectly encapsulated why it was important for Sam to become Cap. I also wish they spent more time with Isaiah, though. Just like Urton said, I completely agree. I would love to have began that series back in the day, and you meet Isaiah Bradley.
And you see him, and that was the point. Because
said,
they did that in the books. In the books. You basically had a chance to see that. And that narrative was important. It was important why for Sam's decision to take up the shield and to become Captain America. It was important to that narrative.
I think we'll see it in season 2. But hang on, let me just finish Tariq's. He says, Sam's journey was extremely important, but Isaiah Bradley was hands down the core of that show. Top 5 MCU character, in my opinion. Well, first of all, thanks for supporting the channel.
I'll give you that.
Really enjoy those comments, by the way.
Exactly.
And I honestly thought that once we saw Isaiah, that character at that moment, that's where it was going to go. So I was surprised, like when he left, and then we didn't see more of the interaction, because it almost felt like Falcon needed to have more interaction to, just for his own personal sanity, because he was dealing with a lot of different things. And, it almost felt like he was on his own, so somewhat alone. What he was missing was, let's say Captain America, the other one, who was kind of like a confidant and a friend. And so without having that, this would have been the other person who would have given that support and taken him and given him the strength to go forward.
But you know what I think, though? I think we're going to get something like that kind of fleshed out in Captain America, in the film itself. because they are writing, and like I said, they are, setting that up. I think that basically Isaiah, now mind you, Isaiah, his character was basically placed there also because, of course, we know that, we're getting the Young Avengers, and there's a setup for that too with the Patriot.
Right.
So, you know what I mean? We're going to actually see that. But I think that Sam is, I think there will be, a bit of counsel, to kind of learn about, Isaiah's his past, learn about, in a sense, even, Sam trying to find out, okay, if you were in my position, I just need to know certain things that you would do, or things what you actually did, for the country. A lot of story that, a really, really, like you said, like he needs that counsel. He needs someone, who's going to help him understand what it means to carry that shield, even, right or wrong, even if he doesn't feel as though he should, he's going to help him understand the importance of carrying a shield, but also maintaining who you are, your culture, your past, understanding your past so it can actually help dictate your future, and you'll understand what you're doing going forward. So I think that they're going to actually flesh that out in the film a bit more. And I would love that.
I totally agree with you, and I'm totally there for it because I love that miniseries, and like you said, and here's the thing. My whole life I've been a student of storytelling, and I'll watch stories about any group of people.
Yeah.
I don't care what color they are, what ethnicity they are. I grew up watching foreign films because to me it's you're learning about, I'm never going to go to an alien world. So the closest I could ever come to that, is watching foreign films about places I've never been and learning about cultures that might not ever experience. And to me, great stories are great stories. And the basic human truths of existence, doesn't matter what color you are, we all want to be loved. We all want to love others. We all want to hopefully achieve our dreams, and we all have things that we aspire to. And no matter where you go in the world, there's things that unify all humans. It doesn't matter what your color is. It doesn't matter what your gender is. It doesn't matter what your sexuality is. But there is, and all storytelling is about conveying those truths. And there's different flavors of those truths depending on what culture you're from, but for the most part, people understand them. And I think that truthful storytelling, there's not a better way to communicate ideas, thoughts, and feelings to other people than through great stories. Because people will put aside their own personal beliefs, and they will sit down in a movie theater when the lights go down, and they will give themselves over to the story that's on screen. They're not going to sit there and, I mean, some people might, but most of the time people will what other place can you get people to shut the fuck up? And they're sitting in a room full of total strangers, and they don't care who they're sitting next to. You could get the most racist fuck in the world. He doesn't care if he's sitting next to somebody if Spider-Man No Way Home is going to play. And that is, there's a huge responsibility and a huge power. And yet I feel that some of the people are wielding it in the wrong way. They're like, well, through our stories, we're going to show you, we're going to teach you something. And I'm like, no, the story will do the teaching.
The story
will, a great story has those truths embedded in it already. You don't have to go out of your way. You just have to tell us a great story. But now I feel we're living through a period of time where the stories are being compromised because creators feel, well, I know better or whatever. And I think a lot of us are responding to that. And beyond that, look, I'm a capitalist. I believe the problem is the bastardization of capitalism. Everyone's too greedy, and the way our capitalist system is now set up, because real capitalism can work well. It's just that everyone's trying to circumvent and get more than their fair share. And I want to get rich quick. But the problem with that is, in our storytelling, when franchises and IPs are owned by corporations, there's no incentive to stay true to storytelling, because we got to figure out the way to make the biggest bang for the biggest buck and get as much money when we can, how we can, and where we can. And so a lot of these things, these stories, look, movies are always a collision of art and commerce, but when you had George Lucas deciding to make one movie and 20th Century Fox rolls the dice on Star Wars, they were hoping they're hoping that George Lucas could figure that out. You know, they've already rolled their dice, but nobody at Fox was going, well, we need to infuse this with more ethnic diversity. They weren't telling him that. Now there's marketing departments that are telling the storytellers what they need in these stories. Yeah. And that has nothing to do with making the stories good or not. And we should be getting there's no reason that a studio movie I don't know, something just flew into my eye, I think. There's no reason that a studio movie, you'd think that they've been making movies for 100 years. So you'd think that all studio movies are amazing, but they're not. The people that are working at the studios are as clueless as they were 50 years ago or 100 years ago. Although I would dare say they're more clueless now, because it used to be that there were mavericks that ran the studios that would make a decision going, that sounds good, let's do that story. You know? But that's what I think is a bummer, is that we're now living in a time where a lot of our stories are more compromised than ever by outside agendas that people feel the need to infuse the stories with.
And that's you're right, man. I can't. One of the movies, and I was going to say this real quick, Rob, and before we move forward, but one of the movies that, you know, a classic film that touches on, you know, humanity's failures, us, you know, as humanity, and how we fail with even, you know, just being human, and how we judge and how we see people, and how people are just, you know, used for, you know, in some of the most, you know, sadistic ways, you know, and, you know, how we, you know, stereotype individuals. Classic film. I'll give you an example. Elephant Man.
Oh,
John, that movie, literally, no matter how many times I watch that film, even now, it breaks my heart, bro. It was one of the most masterful performances ever. If Sir Anthony Hopkins, I think it was was it John Hurt or William
John Hurt?
Was it
John Hurt playing
the Elephant Man? Yeah, John Merrick, and he, bro, like literally, it was a film that literally. It breaks your heart to watch it, but you can't take your eyes off of it. Like, you just have to keep watching it. But it was written without an agenda. It was written because it was a really good story, and it forced us to look at ourselves and how we view other people. No matter if it's a deformity, if it's color, if it's, you know, whatever it may be, it forces you to look. But the point is, it was a well-written film, a story that was told, and it was amazing, bro. It was amazing. That, and I say that now in this day and age, those type of stories, those narratives are lost because we live in a world of agenda and lackluster writing.
And go ahead.
I'm terrified of the idea of someone taking that story and trying to put a modern twist on it.
Oh, please don't. I'm
terrified of, but this is what's happening to so many perspectives of classic literature. And I think that might be one of the core questions that you're asking about tonight, Robert, is that it is a classic literature, you know, piece that we're looking at. And, you know, at what type of liberties should be afforded to a piece of classical literature to a point where, you know, it may not even be the point of what the original intention was. And, you know, it's been lost. And, you know, you're left with something that, you know, while it's using the moniker of that classic literature, truly is not, you know, at all anything like, you know, what its original intention was. So I think that, you know, I would be not surprised that if someone were to do that. We've seen one-person shows where people try to interpret other things their own way, but that would certainly be something that I would be very against seeing if they were to remove the message of, you know, treating a person like a human being and not like an animal. In that,
and try to put their own spin on it just to serve a narrative now. But
you know, that story of John Merrick is such a classical. The idea of don't judge what I look like. Don't judge a book by its cover. You know, and John Merrick was, you found out, and no one was more surprised than Anthony Hopkins to find out that John Merrick was brilliant, was a human and had a soul. You know, I think back there, there are variations on that theme too. Like I think I think back to the Green Mile, the Stephen King story, The Green Mile. They made it into a movie with Tom Hanks, and in this case, there's a black man, a very large black man, who is considered to be a simpleton who was accused of murder, and they're going to execute him. And it was the same thing. I mean, and it turns out that not only is he a gentle giant who didn't really hurt this person, but also was imbued with healing powers. He literally has the power of the gods to heal. He has the ability to heal, and yet Tom Hanks, just like Anthony Hopkins in Elephant Man, in The Green Mile, Tom Hanks realizes that this is a great injustice, and they live in a time where he was railroaded because of the way he looked, and at the end he does get executed, wrongly executed, even though he helped cure people of their infirmities. I mean, he literally was a divine creature that was that to death because of prejudice and because of man's inhumanity to man. And that story, by the way, the story of the person on the outside that isn't who we think they are, is one of the great classical story tropes of all. And you can, whether it's color, whether it's physicality, somebody that for whatever reason is rejected by society at large, that is a great classical story trope that can work so many different ways as long as it's done truthfully. And I love those kinds of stories. In The Elephant Man, it's funny because David Lynch directed that movie, and it's beautifully done. Recently, it was released in 4K. It's beautifully done in a gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous film. And, nowadays, I don't know if people are capable. There's a lot of great writers. I shouldn't say that, but nowadays people they're putting their agendas above their characters and their stories. And we can tell and we can feel it, because when you do that, you've already given up the ghost. You're not a good enough writer to make sure that the stories themselves are carrying your message. You have to allow your message to supersede that of the story that you're telling. And once you've done that, you've compromised your story. And we as genre fans, we don't understand. I think the thing that nobody talks about, we're toxic fans, or we're racist or sexist or whatever, when really I think everybody is responding to the fact that we're being given counterfeit stories. We're being given stories that we know, we don't quite understand why. We can feel, though, that the stories that we're getting are not good enough, that the writers of these stories, the makers of these stories, the corporations that now own these IPs, they are not giving us the storytelling that we deserve as consumers and lovers of these tales. No, you're just an aging man-child. No, I'm a student of great storytelling and have been my whole life. That's something that is in my soul. And now you people are not giving us the stories not only that we deserve, but that we have earned, because we have studied these stories our whole lives. And the people that are making them are not cutting the mustard.
Let me ask you a question, Rob. Do you, and this is something I was thinking about before, and in the industry, do you think I think I already know the answer to this question, but do you think that Hollywood and some studios are forcing the writers to write certain things?
Oh yeah.
Like it, because the thing is, I don't want to come down hard on the writers, because sometimes they're forced to write stories that they don't really want, to really convey. Like, they know how they want it to want the narrative to be, but the studio, for the sake of pleasing a certain crowd or a demographic, or just the narrative that we've been talking about, and these narratives are being pushed now. Not that, and here's the thing, and I want to preface this by saying that not to say that these things aren't important, because they are. The point is,
they are important.
They are extremely important. You know what I mean? Race, You know what I mean? Sexuality, all these things are important because they need to be discussed and they need to have representation, and people need to know that there's a place for it all. But my thing is, when you're forcing it, if it's like, you know, like if it feels forced, this is like, you know, sex. If it feels forced, it's like, yo, man, just let me do my thing. Don't force me to do it. Just let me do it. You know what I mean? Let me basically be smooth with everything that I'm doing. But it's just like,
and if
yo,
someone doesn't
like,
want you to do it, you back off.
you back off, plain and simple. And that's just the way I look at it. Like, yo, like we want you to back off and just write a good story. That's it. You know what I mean? So wow, like,
well, I mean, you know, you think like it was Damon Lindelof who said, he talked about how when TV writers get together, they want to outwoke each other these days. And I see that because everybody wants to be first in line to they want everyone to know, look at how progressive, look at how good of a person I am.
Yeah. Then when I see that, it makes me feel like you're phony.
That's
literally.
Right. That's right. And
literally.
And you know, there's a lot of YouTube channels that they might do it in a different way than I do it, but I don't like virtue signaling either. I feel it's disingenuous, and in a way it's kind of offensive, because you not only are you not telling us a great story, but you're now telling your audience that you think that you're better than they are, because you have to point to them and go, this is what you need to start. Don't tell me how to think. Give me something to ponder and to think about. The great stories instill in their audiences, hopefully, an innate curiosity to ponder the questions that are brought up within a narrative. When a narrative is saying, you audience member, if you're not thinking this way, there's something wrong with you. And I feel that that's where we're at now. And I've never felt that way before. You know, I've never felt that. And we're getting these kinds of stories, and I think people are having that reaction to it, because you can feel it, and you know, and it's really, no one likes to be pandered to, or nobody likes to be condescended to. And I do feel that a lot of these stories and a lot of these narratives that people are trying to spin now are incredibly condescending. You know, Carl Weathers in The Mandalorian as Grief Karga, he was a fucking badass character.
Hell yeah.
When he was introduced,
Hell yeah.
I didn't sit there and go, oh, they've added Carl Weathers because he was black. I was like, Carl Weathers is Apollo fucking Creed. So of course, to me, I look at that and I'm like, how fucking cool is it that they went and got Apollo fucking Creed to bring him into the Star Wars universe? That to me is that right then and there, that was just a cool thing to do, and that character was cool. You know, Carl Weathers never, Grief Karga doesn't show up and go, you know, I'm black. He doesn't do that.
No.
And it that to me was inspired. It was what Quentin Tarantino would do. He'd find, like, Travolta's career was not in the best place. He's like, I love you, John Travolta. I'm going to put you in Pulp Fiction and revive your career. Who would have thought Carl Weathers would wind up in the Star Wars universe? Well, I'll tell you, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni didn't thought it was badass.
Yeah.
I mean, there is some irony here, because Lael and I earlier last night or tonight were on a podcast, stream together, where we were talking about Grief Karga and Carl Weathers.
Yeah.
And not only were we talking about him career-wise, but we were talking about his representation as a figure, let's say, that was produced for purchase as a 1/6 scale figure, or in any size for that matter. And I had said, you know, that what's interesting about him is that he's proven himself in front of and behind the camera, in front as an actor with an incredible level of athleticism, and he can act, and he's a fantastic director. So, you know, this guy should have definitely had a 1/6 scale figure already. And, you know, and we knew this, but, you know, unfortunately he didn't have one now. But you know, it's very funny, you know, when we're looking at, you know, in particular, Carl Weathers, who has incredible talent, and he's iconic now, isn't he? Yeah. Because he's had a career that spanned what is it, almost 50 years, 1970 to now.
Oh yeah. I
And
mean, Rocky was what, 76?
Yep.
and he's still getting work, and there's a demand for him. People look for him, and
Mhm.
his role in the series, let's say in Star Wars, is not he's not sort of like, I felt he was one of the leads because he wasn't really a supporting character. He was the person, he was the head of the
Yeah.
guild, and he was
Yeah.
telling Din what he needed to do, and sometimes saying, well, maybe you need to slow down, Din, giving
Mhm.
him advice. Even when they had that shootout, that small disagreement, they still had each other's back in the end, and the way that things worked out, now he's an ally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In that, and a very important one, they go and they destroy this outpost that's hidden on Navarro,
Mhm.
which they felt was necessary to do because it was, not safe. They wanted to make the planet safe, and these sorts of things that he gets involved in now. It's more than just being a guild member. Now
Right.
he's sort of being a leader, and leading a group of people who feel safe under his protection. And
Mhm.
I think that character has developed in a way that is very satisfying to see, and it's not a surprise that he's a popular character. So
Yeah.
why aren't we seeing what he should have been given as a 1/6 scale figure? Why haven't we even seen a third party figure, like, and I know Lael's probably like, Rita always brings up third party figures, but I like those too. I
Mhm.
feel like they've offered, for, especially for me, when I look at a figure, I'm like, oh, I could get the third party figure, it's less
Yeah.
money, and sometimes they offer different accessories and things. So, having those options out there are good too. But, we have to ask ourselves, why haven't we seen that? For the Walking
Like,
Dead
what's the reason?
figures,
Yeah.
thereby, I think is it So? Or is it, what's the
It's
company that's doing it?
is 3A or it's
It's 3-0.
3-0.
3-0.
Yeah.
And there are quite a few characters who are African American in that show, and they've
Mhm.
made them, and
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
purchased some of
Michonne.
them.
Yeah.
But if I waited somewhere else, I would never see that figure. Like, I'm
Yeah.
just so grateful that they decided to do that. Maybe they got the license for it anyway, so maybe it's not a third party, but still,
What's funny is
it's been years that series has been on, right?
Hot Toys
10
made
years.
an Apollo Creed figure about 15 years ago.
Yes.
So
Yes.
they've already made
Well, I
a Carl Weathers figure.
thought they
Yep.
were going to do it again because they had just done the Rocky one, right? Right?
Yeah.
Didn't they just redo the Rocky one? It's like $1,000
But
or something
Hot
like
Toys
that.
didn't do it. Hot Toys didn't do
Who did
There's
it?
another.
There's
it was
another- Yeah, I
gotta look
forget
it
the.
up.
There was
It's
another.
a beautiful figure.
Yeah.
They've done a few. But I'm sure somebody will make it. I mean, I understand. On one hand, he's not very toyetic. His design is not
Yeah.
very toyetic as opposed to Mandalorians, which are.
Yeah.
So I get where they're coming from.
Mhm.
I don't understand why they don't do the Dora Milaje because they're very toyetic.
They're very toyetic.
But I mean, it's a strange thing. By the way, there's RRTNZ said, "Hail Rob, Lael, and random question: any of you
Yeah, how you
fans
doing,
of
man?
Fringe, J.J. Abrams'
Yes.
2000 sci-fi
Yes.
show?
I
John
liked
Noble,
that series.
yeah, as the GOAT
Sorry.
TV mad scientist. I watched all of Fringe. It had a really interesting bent. I mean, again, it was a show that I wish was more focused. It was kind of made up as they went along, and every season they did new things. But it's definitely a worthy show. It's really interesting. I like
Yeah.
Fringe. Did you watch Fringe, Lael?
Yeah, I did.
I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. I really did enjoy it.
Yeah, it's good. Martin Prieto says, "Hey Rob, what do you think about Todd McFarlane and Kevin Feige teaming up for a Spawn movie?" Well, one can only dream. He says, "I don't know. I would like to see talk about another African American character, a good Spawn
Yeah.
movie. I hated the first Spawn film, but I don't think Todd McFarlane's going to do it on his own. It's never going to be a part of the Marvel universe." Now, Darth Plato says something interesting. He says, to be fair, there was a black samurai. His name was Yatsuki, and he was black, not Japanese, and this was in the 1500s. There is an incentive not to change if the idea is, well, this school has awful grades, therefore let's give money to this school to pull them out. What really happens is that it incentivizes the faculty to keep the grades the same, to keep the money. Okay, well, those are two things, Darth. Those are two. First of all, thanks for the support of the channel. Not only is Yatsuki, is that true, but there's an animated series on Netflix about that character, about the Black Samurai.
Yep.
And Nick
And
Jones.
Chadwick Boseman was supposed to play the live action version of that character.
Yep.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
that's true. But like you said, there was one of them. There was only one. And the fact that he is being recognized, I think, is very cool. And I have to give a shout out to Nick Jones Jr., who used to work with Ashley Miller, who did Dota writing assistant. Nick is a former military officer who left the military, served his country, and then went to Hollywood with dreams of writing. And he was one of the people that created that show. So kudos to him. I don't know if he got married or he's getting married. He's actually a terrific guy, and I wish him all the success in the world because it's very cool.
Robert, I'm sorry. Was there another chat by someone by the name of Joseph Michael? Did you read that?
I haven't got there yet.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's I was going back a little bit, but yeah. And then Darth Plato says, here's like you said, the fact that we have our system set up so everybody it has to get paid, which I understand. But this idea, making sure test scores are rising, so we're not going to make sure people actually know something. We're going to do whatever we can to game the system to get those fake test scores up. This is the problem with our entire country. All we want to do is take shortcuts and appease whatever is right above us rather than have real systemic change. And it's incredibly frustrating. I always joke about in Hollywood when you're making a film, right? When you're making a movie, you're going to spend, say, $100,000 a day or more. There are no problems when you're making Hollywood films because the people that work on them are so good at their jobs, they surmount problems because every minute on set you're not spending money effectively, you're not getting your job done. And I've often joked that I really wish that film productions, people that actually produce, not work in the studios, but the people that actually are on the ground day to day producing movies, I wish they ran our government because they have to make things work on time. They have to finish within 12 hours and they have to finish on time and on budget or they get screwed. So they don't allow problems to exist. They solve problems immediately. No blame game. No one's hiding anything because you can't. And like Darth Plato was saying, we're not like, okay, we'll throw money at the problem, but everyone's trying to cover their own ass and they're not solving the problem they want to solve, which is we need a smart, healthy population. That should be the first line of defense for any American. And if you are impoverished or you are economically or socially or familially disadvantaged, those should be the first people we help. But we don't because there's no profit involved. But imagine if we had an entire nation of smart, real educated and healthy people. Imagine what we could do then. You might change the world, and yet nobody sees it that way. Our first line of national defense is not our military. It's a healthy, educated population. And we don't think of it like that. Because where's the profit?
True.
So, sorry, I'll move up to Claudius. Our friend Claudius is here, one half of the official couple of the Burnettwork. Claudius says, Robert, just a note on U.S. prison demographics. 30% of inmates are white, 33% are black, 23% are Latino. So blacks are overrepresented and are the largest demographic block. But it has fallen by 34% since 2006. Claudius, by the way, is in a position to know. So that's heartening, I guess. That's progress.
Yeah. It's progressive. It's definitely progressive, but I think it's also recognizing that there's a system. I mean, because people need to know the prison pipeline still exists. It really does, and it's a system that's basically taking advantage. They are really taking advantage of a system and using, a culture, and it's something that has and it is brought to the forefront, but still, because of the simple fact that it's a money-making regime.
Yeah, it's a for-profit system.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's terrible.
It is terrible. All Our friend Mike Alito says Sam's interaction with Bucky was intended as the substitute for Sam's friendship with Steve. How Lael feels about the recent T'Challa. Oh, how does Lael feel about the recent T'Challa recast controversy?
I will tell you right off the back, I feel as though that he needs to be recasted. And I really feel that. I really feel that T'Challa needs to be recasted because there's so much richness, even that character. Come on, I mean, we know that, you know, Chadwick would have wanted that story to live on. He would have wanted that character to live on. You can't, you know, with so much potential for this character and so many stories to tell about this character, not to recast is a disservice to the IP. It is. And I'm just being completely honest. It is a disservice to the IP. And I would have loved to been in that room when they made that decision. I would have loved to have been in that room because I really believe, like, seriously, and there's a movement of individuals out there right now who are really pushing because they need to understand that there's so much richer. Now, look, they may give us what we call the 52 fake out, and there might be a recasting of this character, and they're just not letting us know. But I'm hoping they are really, really reconsidering that decision because this character needs to be recasted. In my opinion, he needs, and I'm damn near sure that you would actually honor not just Chadwick, not just the character, but Chadwick as well, by recasting and letting this character live on. I really firmly believe that. I really do.
Let me ask you a question. We know the Illuminati is in Multiverse of Madness.
Hell yeah.
What if there is a Black Panther, different actor, part of the Illuminati, and that actor, whoever he may be, or she, but I would say he because T'Challa should be. I agree with you. But if they introduce him in Multiverse of Madness as part of the Illuminati and somehow he comes back to Earth 616, you could make it canonical. You could honor Chadwick Boseman's memory, and it would still be pretty cool because, yeah, it's the multiverse. But it could be done.
It could be done. It could most definitely be done.
And
I would think that's the right way to introduce the character. I really do.
I mean, he was introduced in Civil War into the MCU, and what's interesting about that is I don't think anyone would have a problem introducing it's T'Challa. It's just not the T'Challa we've seen, but it's
just
a
not the T'Challa we know.
And especially if that person is part of the Illuminati and is already a badass new actor. I mean, look, I've already been dealing with the fact that I don't know if you guys have talked about it, but on the John Campea show, we've been talking about the idea that the MCU that we have been watching is a post No More Mutants universe. That Wanda Maximoff already got rid of all the mutants. That's why they're not there. And that at the end of Multiverse of Madness or something, she could bring all the mutants back, and suddenly, which, by the way, I love this idea. I mean, it's a very comic book idea, but it's a way to bring back the X-Men that's canonically interesting. And the fact that Wanda actually had real children at some point. I mean, but it's a way to bring T'Challa back.
You know what? We talked about this on I think we talked about this. Did we talk what did we talked about this? Oh, where did we talk? We had this conversation. I forget what show. Was it on Say What? Or
I think it was on Say What. I think it was on Say
we
What.
had this conversation and it was behind the scenes. But I had came up I was thinking about this and I was like, you know what? No, as a matter of fact, I was talking about this with Six Scale Mafia. He had a live stream on IG, and it dawned on me when I was watching this trailer. I was like, okay, we're going to get multiple versions of Wanda. So here's the thing. Just follow me here real quick. We already know that that's Patrick Stewart. Yeah. We know that. We know that that's Patrick Stewart, and we know that's Professor X. What if, because remember he said his very words were, we have to tell him the truth. We should tell him the truth. What if the truth is, and just follow me here real quick, Rob, that House of M had already happened?
Oh, that's absolutely, I think absolutely Yes.
And that in the House of M happened, and then it's in this world, and it's in our reality, it happened, and no one knows it did,
No,
and no one knows. That would be incredible, bro.
I think that's exactly where they're going with this.
You think that?
I think for sure.
I hope so.
And I'll tell
I
you something.
hope so.
I'll tell you something
I
because
hope so.
because we know that Wanda Maximoff and Pietro are mutants.
Yeah.
But if she got rid of the mutants, the reality that she's changed would have to, they couldn't be
have an
called
effect
mutants
on her.
anymore.
Exactly.
So their miracles and the Infinity Stone imbued them with powers, the Hydra experimentations that went on, even though that's not true. But even Wanda changed reality, so she's not aware of it. And all of this stuff, it was the grief, the death of Vision that has caused her reality to fracture. And I think that the Illuminati that they're going to introduce is outside of space-time somehow. And that Professor Xavier is like, I'm not the Professor Xavier from your universe.
Yes.
But your universe, the 616 universe, the entire Marvel universe that we have been watching since 2008 is a post, because it would be in her early 20s. Maybe she had kids, and that was... So Wanda Maximoff has already changed the universe. And the reason Captain Marvel, there were mutants in that world. We just didn't hear about them because it was Captain Marvel and it was 96. I honestly believe that we're going to get that because wouldn't it be cool if Kevin Feige thinks that way? Yeah. And how mind-blowing would that be?
That would be so amazing, bro. And the thing is, because there's two... Now, there's a version of Wanda that we actually see, and there's a version of Wanda that goes and attacks, the Illuminati, and it could be to silence them, or it can be an awakening. We don't know. So, I really believe that House of M has already taken place.
Yeah,
and this is the warning. Like, this is the warning of what and if they do, and again, we could talk about it. It could be a speculation, but I agree with you, Rob. I think that's where they're going, bro. It makes the most sense.
Yeah, I think
it makes the most sense.
It absolutely does. And look, if Professor Xavier is in this movie, he's going to explain. Stephen Strange's like, who are you? Well, I'm Professor. He's going to have to say who he is. So you're a mutant? Yes, I'm a mutant. And you know the spell that you cast, making sure the world forgot about Peter Parker? That's nothing. You have no idea about the reality you've been living in and what you have already forgotten. And Stephen Strange is like, what are you talking about? Wanda Maximoff. And I'm getting chills just... I mean,
thinking about it, because basically House of M is there, like they're living that reality, and remember it because it was Pete and Wolverine in the books. You know what I mean? Like, so, bro, I would be so excited if they do that, and this is the route that they're taking. I would,
But you know why I think it's cool? Why I think it's going to happen? Because I'll tell you. So Kevin Feige is a huge Star Trek fan, and Star Trek: The Next Generation is his jam. Endgame was all good things. Different time periods. You're seeing the history play out. What he's doing now is the third season Next Generation episode, Yesterday's Enterprise. In Yesterday's Enterprise, time changes, and the Klingons are at war with the Federation for 20 years. And the Federation's losing the war. Time had changed in an instant. Because of a thing. We have been watching the Yesterday's Enterprise version of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We just never saw it the way it was originally supposed to be before it changed. We've been seeing, and Kevin Feige, you've already got House of M. They look through these comic books. He's going to everyone. I am sure Kevin Feige brought up in a meeting, I want all of you to watch the Star Trek: The Next Generation episode, Yesterday's Enterprise. Once he got the Fox stuff back, he already knew this before he got Fox back.
Yeah,
he knew he was going to do this. If you and I guarantee you that's what they're setting up. And as a middle-aged white dude with one foot in the grave, I feel like a little kid even thinking about this.
Yeah, think about that.
I cannot wait. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, bro. If they do that and pull it off, and if it's like, yo, a piece of a puzzle that we're trying to solve,
And I'll tell
if
you
they do
something.
this, yeah.
If Stephen Strange had not cast the spell to make everyone forget Peter Parker, nobody would have known. It was him doing that kicked off that reality, because what he did was his spell he unknowingly did this. His spell tore open he opened up the multiverse. He also disrupted somehow the spell that Wanda had cast when she said no more mutants. He did it. He screwed it up. He tore open something, and no one even knew, because no one knew no one knew Peter Parker was gonna be like, Mrs. Strange, Doctor Strange, can you? It was him doing that, and that's why, like, when you see Mordo going, you're tampering with reality or whatever, because the Illuminati has been trying to keep it all together, because Wanda is crazy. She's gone, she's completely around the bend nuts. So I think
bro, I'm excited. I'm so excited. Yo,
I'm looking over there at my House of M hardcovers, and I'm like, who wouldn't do that?
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine if, like, Multiverse of Madness or something ends with like a bunch of people they've cast as the X-Men already, they just haven't told us? You think who's gonna know?
Yeah, bro. It's coming, and I'm telling you, I'm so excited. It's like I said, when you're watching this, and I'm watching this trailer over and over again, dissecting different pieces, and I'm like, yo, it dawned on me, like, yo, House of M has really already happened. It happened already. We just didn't know it, and even us as viewers didn't even know it happened. And now that whole reality has been ripped open,
and
it's like, wow, here we go.
How badass is that? And also, I'll tell you what another benefit of this is. That means that Thanos' snap happened in a post-House of M universe, which means if they bring the universe back and replace it, maybe Thanos is still around. You never know. Who knows? Or maybe he's dead for real. By the way, Joseph Michael did say another example of ethnic diversity done right is Encanto. I couldn't agree more. I love that movie.
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah,
it's great.
Yes, it is. I finally watched it. Loved it.
It was great. Claudius goes on to say, I love the Silmarillion more than Lord of the Rings. Oh, pshaw. Come on, Claude. But hashtag capitalism question. You invest, this is a good one. You invest $465 million to produce a fantasy epic in 2022. And the story centers around a superior race of immortal beings, one step under angels, depicted as Northern European? Well, clearly you've done a very good job showing why that could be problematic. I mean, look, what do you... yes, Northern European, but they're really not Northern European. They're from a different place. The Astari, the Aluvidar, whatever. But I can see what you're saying. I see where you're going there. Yeah. That's a tough one.
Yeah, it is tough.
I can't, Sharon C. says, Lord of the Rings is being done by the Star Trek Into Darkness showrunners because they wrote the script. Seems all quota demands or to look like Cali or USA. If a princess had a beard and if a male elf had a J.E.J. Conan wig for long hair, great, but no modern clipper cut. Yeah, because that elf does have a modern clipper. That's what you were saying.
Yes, and just some guy had also mentioned, like, he felt that they should have given him long hair. It doesn't matter what the hair looked like.
By the way, I love that video that just some guy made. I loved that video. I think we talked about it, but I love that.
Yes. And, why not give him those extra things that you would need to distinguish him as an elf?
If you're not going to give him long hair, if you don't want to give him that extensive, sleek, long hair, why not just give him long dreads?
Exactly. But something to, add to that look, that fantasy look, which would have looked amazing on him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I still want to
By the way,
it.
I would love to see an elf with dreads.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
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 It would have
Well,
been great.
we didn't we see a dwarf with sort of like dreaded like hair and
In The Hobbit.
In The
The
Hobbit,
Hobbit?
yeah.
Didn't we sort of see that a little bit?
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, and this would have been something new that they could have added to the show that people would have been like, wow, look at how cool that looks.
Yeah,
But,
yeah,
they
Yep.
missed out on that.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean that's it's tough. I mean, but the thing is, I understand honoring, Tolkien. I do get all that, and having worked, I mean, I was steeped in the lore of Middle Earth for years, working on the extended versions and the documentaries we were making for the films, and I have the utmost respect for what Tolkien was doing. But I think that I mean, there's a case to be made both ways. But for me, it's about the Second Age, and there are different ethnicities in Tolkien's world. It's like going to a Dorne, in Game of Thrones. There's places down south where it's basically the Middle East or Africa, call it what you want, and people are living down there. They just weren't a big part of the story. So who's to say in the Second Age that there weren't elves or people that were running around that looked different? Because in the Third Age, Northern Europe was settled. But in the Second Age, people are still migrating up from the Middle East and Africa and moving around the world. It hadn't settled down yet. So I don't have a problem with that. However, but again, we haven't seen it. What I did have a problem with is that it was such a lackluster trailer. I mean, they gave us these generic fantasy images. They've been making this for years, and that's the best they could do. I mean,
there has to be a love scene. There has to be the epic fight. There has to be the amazing bay with incredible structures. There has to be, someone casting a spell. Like all this.
Well, here's what I don't understand. This entire show, it's called The Rings of Power, which it's all about the rings that were forged and given to the tribes of Middle Earth, the dwarves, the men, the elves, whatever. And there's one ring to bind them, which is Sauron, but he has human form in the Second Age. Why shouldn't the trailer have been Sauron in whatever form they're going to show him in, and the rings being like and he's like, they could have done something and show us a character.
I can't remember
character and story.
I can't remember what they are or were not allowed to show, because apparently there were, restrictions. They couldn't show certain things in this series. But if they had shown Sauron before he lost it, and he was supposedly this incredible looking person or creature, or whatever you want to call him. He was incredible looking. And I would have liked to have seen their interpretation of this. They could have, shown us something spectacular. And, we would have been amazed by him and just said, wow, he really does seem godlike, or whatever way they would have made him, and could have really taken that in a fantasy direction that would have been just so amazing to see. But I'm not getting that impression we're going to see a lot of scenes like that, because I think there was even one point in the trailer where there was a crush scene. It looked like it was supposed to be a battle. It looked like it was supposed to be like
right when they're fighting. Like,
but it felt more like they were at a concert and they were getting crushed. And he was like, and I'm like, do you need help? Do you need someone to pull you out of there? Like, it didn't feel like a battle where, it didn't feel like a battle. It felt more like a crush. So, when I say crush, I mean like a crowd of people crushing each other.
Yeah, no, I agree. I temper my comments when I'm on the John Campea show. I'm cognizant of the audience, and I'm not lying, but I do temper what I say. And also I'm dealing with other people, so I can't just mouth off. I hated that trailer. I thought it was the most lackluster, uninspired, ridiculous. You need to show us, okay, I understand you can show us an environment with water, and you can show us Galadriel in armor, which it makes no sense. She's climbing up a ice thing with armor on, whatever. But putting a knife, I'm like, what are you showing us here? Like this, give us a sense of what. It's not enough to do an announcement trailer. Not when you've spent this kind of money. And I feel like what it showed me is the people that are running this show don't know what they're doing. They don't know.
Or what they're trying to do is not at all what we interpret as a fantasy show.
Mm.
You know, they have a different idea of what they think a fantasy show is, and they're just recreating, like you said. You know, maybe they said, okay, there has to be certain scenes, and there has to be a battle, and there has to be, you know, the flea scene. There's actually one still image, Lael and Robert, where Galadriel, she's in the water. And, you know, I questioned it only because I was trying to figure out, you know, what, you know, sometimes they pick these promotional stills, and they're very specific what they show in these photographs. And they're taking, as I think it was, if not you, Lael, it was you, Robert, who had said they take thousands of these photos, right? During the production, there's thousands of these photos. So they have a lot of photos to choose from. And this one where she's sort of in the water, I had kind of joked about it, but it was almost like it was a picture from Wild Things, you know, like where she's in the water and she's kind of like has this look. And I'm thinking to myself, well, what is she doing in the water? Like, what's the message from that I'm supposed to get from that picture? I didn't feel, you know, like what was going on? Like I just had to question, you know, what the intention was as a person from a marketing point of view. Would that be the picture you would use to promote a Lord of the Rings movie? Someone in the water like that with wet hair, just kind of.
No, I mean, you go back and you think
it was
about
so intense too. It was like,
yeah, I mean, I think back. Hang on, let me see if I can find this.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, like, when I think about fantasy films, I could imagine if she had a sword in her hand and was in the water or something, and you know, like holding it up, and I'm like, oh my God, she has this sword of such and such, and she's in the water and she's going, you know, and you're like, oh wow, that is kind of, you don't normally see people fighting in the lake or something, and there's a sword in the lake, and she's gotten it, and that it must be something special, you know, like wow, you know, no, it wasn't.
No, I found. I'm gonna try and see if I can. I'm gonna. Wow, I'm gonna show you. So there was when they first started to promote the Lord of the Rings. This was one of the very first posters they used to promote. And there's two different versions of this. There's the one where Frodo is looking forward, and then there's the one where he's looking down. This is the one he's looking forward. Mm-hmm. So this was the image. This was the very first movie poster that they had made for the Lord of the Rings. And it just says one ring to rule them all, with the ring of power in Frodo's hand, and you're looking at a person. You're looking at Frodo Baggins. You know, and if you know the story, this is a pretty evocative image. It was simple. It's a photograph, but this is character and story. You know. Oh, it probably hasn't caught up with you live, like, but yeah, it is up there. Yeah. So, and look at the. I mean, that was how they promoted Lord of the Rings. Now, think about the difference for the TV show. All they gave us when they released all those posters was just these images of generic fantasy characters. Now, we know Lord of the Rings, we know Narnia, we know Witcher. Pick your fantasy trope. Those images they showed us were just generic Middle-earth denizens. They could be anybody or anything. And it was disappointing that they didn't give us a face. They didn't give us faces. They just gave us the generic. I mean, you might as well been looking at a D&D manual of your various things. Whereas, you know, whereas this image is one. The whole idea is that Frodo alone carries the ring, and
see the darkness around him, because it's this evil that's around him that he has to resist, with the temptation of the ring looking beautiful and gold, and it looks great, but it's actually this evil that wants to encapsulate him, and you know, just cause all sorts of trouble for him. And I think it was a very clever a poster that is very haunting. It's very telling. You know that there's some doom and gloom ahead. It's not going to be all hearts and flowers. It's a fantasy. It's a fantasy that we're being shown that, hey, you know, this gold ring looks nice, but it has a story to tell, and this is what you're going to find out if you come to see this film.
Now, what's really interesting is they made 2 different versions of this poster. And the one I just showed you, I gave to my friend Dave Hargrove. But here is the one that I kept. This is the same poster. It's a different iteration. It's Frodo not looking straight forward. He's looking down at the ring. And it says that power can be held in the smallest of things. And so they had that poster and they had this poster. And these 2 posters were how they gave us the first images, the announcement images of Lord of the Rings. And to me, this sums it up. I mean, literally the entire story in these 2 images. And when I saw them, well, there's a Vanity Fair cover spread or whatever, here they are. And when you're not showing us our characters and you're not telling us anything other than, well, these are people that live in this fantasy world, in this, I'm like, that's how you lead. You're leading nameless, faceless people. And then, of course, you give us, well, this is Galadriel, and anyone who knows anything about Galadriel, she's not somebody who's wearing a bunch of armor. You know, she's not leading armies into battle. Not in that way. But
I mean, another thing too, to add to what you were saying, Robert, was that some of the promotional photos and stills that they gave us were actually photographs of people's hands holding swords, or they'll be holding a staff, and you couldn't see the rest of the character. And it seemed very interesting. I said, oh my gosh, I'm like, maybe there's something about, you know, the possession of these maybe 5 items, you know, the sword, and then there was a bow and maybe a staff, you know, like maybe they were creating these new
axe.
Yes, yes, you know, but it was something special. Like it really seemed very interesting. So I was very surprised to see they put so much effort into, you know, like it wasn't as detailed as it could have been, but they put a lot of effort. It was very well lit, and you could see the hand holding it, and the hand had possession of it, you know, like whoever had that was ruling and had this thing. It was important as part of their character or part of the character development. So when they showed you the full characters, it was quite shocking to see, you know, the lack of detail and focus on the characters that we saw from those stills. And I thought to myself, what happened along the way? What happened from those initial photos with the hand, which was kind of interesting, going to the rest of the package where we essentially see the elf clothed in what looks like a burlap sack, whatever he's wearing. That is the most unimaginative costume. I'm sorry to the costume designer, but I just have to say I'm not fond of that look for an elf. I mean,
you know, it's funny that you made a really good point earlier in the show. You know, in post-production with the digital grading technology they used on the Lord of the Rings films, they were able to give the elves an ethereal glow.
Loved it.
And here you're saying, now maybe you can say that there's a reason for that in the Second Age, that the elves didn't glow or something, but I agree with you, and I think that again, this is why you need very strong showrunners who look. This show was a very troubled production. I can only imagine how difficult it was when you spent $400 million, or actually the rights are $250 million, and they're spending $55 million an episode, which is inexplicable to me. I mean, it's you know, you need great scripts before you're spending money. And if you have great scripts for an hour long or an hour and a half long TV show, why you're spending $55 million an episode, I'm sorry. I don't care what TV show you're making. You're not you're not producing your show effectively. I'll flat out say it. Like, there's no reason that an hour and 15-minute episode of television should cost $55 million. Because, again, it's characters and story. Especially, you know, they've moved the production out of New Zealand. and they've taken it back to the
know.
UK, and it's so like here's the problem is these two guys that are show running have never show run before. It's to me
They don't have any credentials and
no,
they
and
don't have anything on their resume. So it's like almost giving the job to a complete unknown, someone who's never done this before. And by moving it away from the sites that we know in New Zealand, it's going to have a very different look and feel to it. It's the landscapes are not quite the same. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with where they move to. It's just that it will have a different look when it comes to the lands that we know.
I
We
just
know
don't.
that that land looks that way, but it's not going to be in it.
I mean, having actually been there on two productions, I mean, Lord of the Rings and Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, New Zealand has an incredible group of people that know how to produce these shows, and defer to them. Like,
And Robert, you got a lot of super chats.
I know we do.
over the
We have many super chats. Stubble McShave says, "I'm fascinated by the storytelling in Vox Machina.
Yeah.
It's been improvised around a gaming table and translated truthfully to the screen. They are more concerned about keeping the characters real to themselves than to let them be PC." Well, that is true. And I think, look, I love what they've done with, I think Vox Machina, I mean, it was crowdfunded and it is late to the party. Though everybody, they've done an amazing job. And it is true, unfettered, uncut creativity. So I love that. I wish we can get, I mean, I think this is a unique way of creation. I think it's great. Have you guys seen the show?
Yes, I haven't. And it's as refreshing as Peacemaker for me. I feel that it has that type of moxie, so to speak, in it. And it's fun and, just enjoyable. And it actually feels like the old Dungeons and Dragons cartoon that I used to watch growing up. There's something about it that it reminds me, but I'm not quite sure what it is. But maybe it's just the carefreeness of the adventures. It might be one of the elements in that for me.
I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, it's worth watching. I mean, you kind of have to.
You like it, Lael. You like it.
Yeah, I think you'll dig it.
Okay.
But I agree with Stubble. I mean, the thing is, the team of people, they're obviously already very talented, a very talented group. And
Yeah.
so, but they were allowed to make the show they wanted to make. No one's telling them what they have complete creative control over what they gave us, and it shows.
You can tell they have artistic freedom in this show
Completely.
because it's just wonderful. And I feel it's the same experience that you get in Peacemaker, where they kind of make fun of themselves. You read something on the internet and it's not true, but you're going to discuss it anyway with someone and say, it's totally not true. And your friend will say, well, you're the idiot for believing that, like the things actually happen in real life, happen in that show. And it feels that way in Vox Machina as well.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. Crosstalk hasn't been around for a while. Hey Rob, long time no see. How have you been? Cheers to the panel from the Great White North in Edmonton. Love
Cheers
the
to
panelists. Yeah, love the panelists and look forward to joining chats again. Well, Crosstalk, thank you for the support. You don't have to support the channel to join the chats. Just join the party, man. Come on and join us. Claudius comes back and says, the Silmarillion is written like the Bible. When the Quendi, the elves, awake near the starlit mare of, I can't even pronounce all these names, Gavenian, their features are not immediately described. Some elves actually wandered off, not joining the rest of the Eldar in the march west.
Yes.
That is true. And by the way, there are the dark elves as well. And some of those people, we know what happened to them, and it wasn't good. So you're not wrong.
And there are also wizards that have wandered off as well, right, Robert?
Yes,
that
there
they
are.
don't know what happened to them, and those are also stories that have been untold, so to speak. And someone, I can't read this name. Oh yeah, I can. It is this says that the Legend of Vox Machina is actually part of the Dungeons and Dragons universe.
Oh,
so that's
yeah. That's what I've heard. That's good to know.
Yeah.
This is this. I like that. But that's true. The Silmarillion is written. I remember I got the Silmarillion, I want to say like in 81.
Mhm.
I don't know if I got it for my bar mitzvah in '80. I got Pink Floyd The Wall for my bar mitzvah. It changed my life. I was one of those kids. I'm like, you can't just listen to Another Brick in the Wall Part 2. You have to listen to the entire 4 sides of the album, man. Darth Plato says, another incentivization point. Did you ever see the movie Annie? Daddy
Yes.
Warbucks wanted to help Annie find her parents. He puts an article in the paper offering a cash reward for the parents to come forward. What happened? Half of New York showed up. Well, it's true, but, you know, everybody wants to look for free money. So
Easy Street. Easy Street. That's the song that they were singing when they knew they were going to get the money.
Claudius says, apparently, I did not know Claude knew his Lord of the Rings this well. He clearly is an educated man. I don't know if he can go toe-to-toe with Stephen Colbert, but perhaps he could. Claudius says, Elf Theory. The Silmarillion big baddie Melkor, a fallen Valar angel, may have used some evils to create orcs. However, Tolkien never told the tale of the elves that wandered into other lands and were able to escape Melkor. Now, this is interesting. They do not have the rights to use the Silmarillion or the Lost Tales or any of that stuff. They only, which I do not understand, the Lord of the Rings of Power series only has the rights to The Hobbit and the 3 Lord of the Rings books and their appendices. That's it. They don't have the rights to anything else. Now, I don't know if that means, because the appendices do touch on things, but so can they use Melkor? I guess. But it's it's weird.
Remember.
It's like, why would you do that? Like, why would you buy those rights and not... by the way, can I just... This is a total aside. So, my favorite candy, aside from cinnamon, I love Haribo Gold Bears. I don't... Talk about racist. I don't like the limited time blue party hats that they've added into the Gold Bears. These look like chemical beakers, like you're mixing something.
Oh, you like you mean like an Elvermeyer flask?
Yeah, like an Erlenmeyer flask from the X-Files. Yeah, that's exactly. I don't understand this. Now, they taste pretty good, but why do they have to add blue to the lineup? Like, I don't understand. I'm a bluist, maybe. I'm racist against blue. I don't know. Not a fan. I'm just saying I love my hair. I'd run out of Gold Bears. I got some. There you go.
You could just do without the blue.
I mean, they're not bad. That's the thing. I hate myself for loving them. They're not bad. I just don't like that they had to put them on the cover. For a limited time, get the blue beakers. They're not bears.
Yeah.
They're
And
like
they're not
triangular.
beakers either. They're
I don't know what they
Elvermeyer
are. I'm
flasks.
like if you're going to give me blue, give me a blue bear. Don't give me a weird... Why are there triangular... What is that? Like, this is Hollywood. This is the problem with storytelling. Someone, they've been making these things since 1920, and someone comes in and goes, well, we have to celebrate our 100-year anniversary or whatever, and we're going to put a new color in that isn't a bear. Why? Why do this? Don't change what I love. Just saying.
And we have a few more super chats. I think Cardinal
many.
Sin.
Yes, Cardinal. Oh, we haven't even got there yet. But I want to say, Claudius, I don't know if Melkor is actually in the appendices, because it's been almost 20 years since I've worked on those, so I don't know. This is a great Ayu Lestari Nababin. That's a great name. Has subscribed to the channel. Well, Ayu AYU. What a great name. I love that name. Your name is amazing. RRTNZ says Predator, most diverse cast. 1 European, 2 American whites, 2 American blacks, 2 Hispanic, 1 Native American, with 0 virtue signaling. Just saying. Well, everyone knows. Come on, man. The Predator, actually, pardon me, not The Predator. Predator is one of the greatest films in all of cinematic history, and Bill Duke is in it, which gives it that much more power. So
I'm gonna have me some fun. I'm gonna have me some fun.
Dude,
And Predator 2
my
had
favorite
Danny
part,
Glover's
bro.
star
Oh my
as the lead in that. So
That was my favorite part, man.
Jesse the Body Ventura. I ain't got time to bleed. So good. You're right though. And it took a New Zealander, one of the whitest countries I've ever been in, other than the Maori, of course. But man, to point out diversity. I love you, RRTNZ. My man Kaz Graphics, all the way from Kirkland, Washington. Hello, Rob. Yes, I will send you a glass. Oh my God. Thank you so much. So for people that don't know, Kaz Graphics, I'm not kidding, he is the official cheesemonger of this channel. Because he is able to get us Beechers. I don't understand if he's an investor, if he started the company. I don't ask. He just sends me delicious boxes of Beechers handmade cheese. And it's in Seattle and New York. It's amazing. He sent us Oprah's favorite mac and cheese is Beechers. We had it for Thanksgiving. He sent me their cheese is like, it's like a drug. You start eating Beecher's cheese. I can't stop. I know it's probably bad for my insides, but I'll eat one of those whole things. But Kaz, he sent me. He has a graphic design company that I don't know if it's his company or works for the company, but he sent me swag, T-shirts, baseball hats, and he sent me this glass that I have for this show, and I for months. Year this is my favorite glass. It was shaped like a beer can. What's not to love? I broke it.
You broke that glass?
I broke it I was walking up the back steps and I just slipped and it went out of my head because it was, I washed it every day and it broke. So I said last night, I can't. This doesn't cut it. I mean, I can't. It's just not the same, man. I need my.
Your setup was not comfortable to have things like that, maybe necessarily, right, Robert?
Well, it's going to be different. Yeah. Well, no, it's because it's such a mess, but everything's going to be cleaned up. The Robservatory 2.0 is coming next month. So, but Kaz Graphics, he says, "Hello, Rob. Yes, I'll send you a glass. Thank you." There you go. But question: have you seen the Elvis trailer? I loved it. It immediately shot up to my must-see list. Okay, you guys, I had a long conversation. I love Baz Luhrmann. I'm a huge fan. I think his Romeo and Juliet is the Blade Runner of Shakespeare adaptations. Strictly Ballroom. I love Moulin Rouge. I even loved Australia. Yeah, I saw this trailer.
I love Australia too.
I love this trailer. I thought it was incredible. Did you guys see it?
I have not seen it.
I haven't seen it yet myself.
Okay, I ask you because Elizabeth's like, that guy doesn't look enough like Elvis Presley.
I'm gonna have to.
And I'm like, no.
I saw the guy playing. He's from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and yeah.
Look, no one looks like Elvis Presley except Elvis Presley, and I do think he evokes Elvis. I thought this trailer looked spectacular. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in. And Tom Hanks plays Colonel Tom Parker. And by the way, he sings his own songs in the movie. And I think it's going to make, it looks great to me. I can't wait. It like Kaz, it immediately shot up to the top of my must-see. One of my most eagerly awaited films of 2022.
Elvis did look different when he was younger. I mean, he had just a slightly different look than when we saw him later on in life, as he kind of got a little heavier and maybe didn't look quite himself. But those years when he was in, did those films where he did a lot of singing movies, that he says he didn't like, but my mom watches them constantly. Because they're actually pretty good. He did look like this actor, so I think he did a good job here. It looks very good.
And I have to say, one of the things that Baz Luhrmann did that I loved, I mean, I liked the first season better than the second season, was The Get Down. Did you guys watch The Get Down?
Yes, I did.
I mean, I loved
yes, I did.
The Get Down. I loved the portrayal of the emerging hip-hop scene in the 70s.
In the 70s going into the 80s, yeah.
Oh, definitely. Man, it was I
love The Good Down.
I mean,
had the actor who basically is the voice for Miles Morales and Into the Spider-Verse, and he also had and
all like what DJ Herc, and all the
cool Herc.
Cool. I loved all that. I mean,
one
of the things, I grew up in Seattle, and I talk about alien worlds. That's why I love blaxploitation cinema of the 70s. You know, I loved it
Yeah.
because I loved any movie set in the sleazy New York of the 1970s. I loved it
Mhm.
because we had
Dirty, gritty New York.
dirty, gritty
Yeah.
New York. We
Gritty
had
as hell.
we had nothing. Seattle was not anymore. There's needles on the streets and homeless camps. But when I was growing up, Seattle was like the cleanest city in the world. And I love the gritty, horrible New York and the movies that came out, the grindhouse features, and I loved it.
Cruising and
I mean,
all
I
that.
loved. I wanted to be a Richard
Taxi
Roundtree,
driver.
man. When I was a kid, I'm like,
Yeah,
I want to
right.
be as cool as
Everybody
Richard
want to be
Roundtree.
Shaft.
I mean, come on, man. I mean, shut your mouth. We didn't have that in Seattle. We got. To be fair, we had mix a lot in the '80s. It's fine. Put your titties on the glass. I like big butts, but it wasn't quite the same.
Yeah.
Wasn't quite the same. Although, I mean, Swass, I loved Posse on Broadway and My Hoopty. We took what we could get. And Mix-a-Lot was representative for Seattle. He was great. He loved the fans. He was always out in public. It was great. He was great.
Yeah.
So Elvis, yes, Kaz, I want to see it. Cardinal Sin sends in a very nice super chat. Cardinal Sin, thank you. RMB, Amazon has strayed so far away from the second age. It's not funny. I'm not looking forward to its Lord of the Rings, but I'll give it a shot. Well, I think we all should. I mean, what's not? Shouldn't we always try? I hope so.
I'm going to watch it. So
I think so too. Tom Jr. Jackson says Amazon was waiting for Tolkien's son to pass, and that way they could do whatever they wanted. And here's the problem. I agree with you, but that kind of thinking leads to the dark side. I mean, easier, more seductive. It doesn't make it good. The Tolkien estate, Christopher Tolkien, they scrupulously guarded the Tolkien estate. They did, and looked out for his work. And it's unfortunate that we're going to get a show that this idea. Here's my problem with today. We believe that these creators are somehow out of step. Tolkien is somebody that you would say, well, he's an old white dude. He's no longer relevant, so we'll change his work. As if a man's life's work, I don't care who you are, some yo-yos can come in and just change it and bend it to their will. Tolkien's work, it's the work of one man. It's literally their life's work. And in terms of a fantasist, that man defined 20th century and now 21st century fantasy. I mean, he was a philologist, studied languages. He created languages and song, and it's a singular work, and he should be honored and revered. And yet, well, we can change it and make it cool on TV. I mean, this is the problem with the world.
Yeah, and it's equally surprising, that biography or that they did on him called Tolkien, about his life, where he's at university and he's working on, as you said, this magnum opus, this incredible work that he's doing, and no one can quite understand what he's doing. They don't understand that he's sort of, literally a genius, and he's about to be sent down. He's about to be expelled from the university because what he's doing, these machinations that he's doing, are seen as a waste of time. Can you imagine if he had decided not to continue to do it, how different our fantasy world would be now?
No, but this is my problem. I think in our postmodern world, we have forgotten how to revere creators. I mean, the act of creation is something that should be honored and respected. We're so cynical now. We don't. Oh, J.R.R. Tolkien's just some old white guy that lived in England. And yet, the fact that we have forgotten, especially in America, we don't have much history. In terms of, like, you go to Europe, people have been human beings in Europe for thousands of years longer than they've been human beings here. Here in America, it's like, that's 20 years old. Let's chop it down. Let's destroy it. We only want things that are new. Who cares? I mean, you can go to Europe and you can drink in a pub that's 1,500 years old. Here, let's get rid of it. Who cares?
That's so sad.
It's frustrating. Um, Cardinal Sin says, let's not forget that Jeff Bezos said, I want a Game of Thrones. We shouldn't expect anything else. But we should. Because here's as a matter of fact, we got half of a great Game of Thrones. We should have expected more from that too.
Mhm.
But it's frustrating because I get it. Everyone wants what they want, and they want to make money. But my God, we have to honor. You know, you wouldn't go into the Louvre and repaint the Mona Lisa to make it better.
Yeah, no.
But they're even suggesting that even fine works of art are under attack in a similar way, you know. And
Come on,
and
man,
so
the white male patriarchy in the West. Let's cancel all of it. You know, let's get rid of all of Western civilization because here's the thing. I have no problem with anybody who wants to make something better.
Yeah.
But if you want to start getting rid of things, you want to start going in and getting rid of works of art or whatever, you better have something better to replace it with, or fuck you.
Just for the sake of, yeah, you're getting rid of it just because you have the power to do it. That's the disservice. Yeah, that's some bullshit.
I mean, that is what are you going to do? I don't like
Yeah.
jazz. I don't like freeform jazz. So let's
Yeah.
get rid of Miles Davis.
Yeah, come on, stop playing.
I mean, it's one of my favorite artists of all time is Miles Davis. By the way, there's a great documentary called The Birth of the Cool. If you don't know anything about Miles Davis, it's not the greatest documentary in the world, but it's a pretty good primer into who and what Miles Davis was. But we live in a world where, I mean, a guy like Miles Davis, there'll never be another person like him ever who ever lived. And what he did for a certain art form, meaning jazz and music, there was no one like him. There never will be anyone like him. And that's true of a lot of these great artists, especially like the idea that you would want to get rid of art that was created hundreds of years ago. Who are we to do that? It's weird. I think it's terrible. Cardinal Sin goes on to say, hey, Laser Bob, do you know what they did to Laser Bob? Didn't you do some significant work on the first two Lord of the Rings films? Well, I was part of a team. That created the special features for the extended edition of Lord of the Rings. I worked for my boss, Michael Pellerin, at Curdy Pellerin and Jeff Curdy, and we spent years documenting. I mean, we went through thousands of hours of tapes. I did hundreds of hours of interviews with people that were involved in the production of Lord of the Rings. And each one of those discs, they're not on the 4K, unfortunately, but the Blu-rays, each movie has 10 hours of documentaries that we created on the making of those films, and we spent a year on each movie. But I didn't do Return of the King because my company was hired by Disney to jump ship and go work on Narnia. So I did, my team and I did Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. But I did work on Fellowship and Two Towers for 2 years, and it was great. It was great. RRTNZ says, thanks, Bob. New Zealand is indeed a great place. Yeah, I was from 2001 to 2004. I spent 3 years in country. I mean, my team was in New Zealand for 14 months just on Narnia. And then on Fellowship and Two Towers, we were back and forth. I love New Zealand. I was there for probably total, collectively, a year. We were going back and forth, but I love New Zealand. I'd retire there if I wasn't, if I had something to do there. I love New Zealand. It's incredible. I love it. It's incredible.
Yes, beautiful.
Yeah, you've been to Australia and New Zealand, Lael.
Yes, I have. I was in Christchurch, New Zealand, and yeah, definitely. I love it.
I loved Christchurch. They shot the big battle sequence in Flock Hill that was like 90 minutes outside of Christchurch. We drive up in the mountains. It was amazing.
Yeah, beautiful scenery. And on top of that, like, I mean, there's a lot of sacred land there as well.
Yep.
Like really, really sacred land. that even Barnes like permission. Like you have to actually have permission to enter certain places. But it's beautiful. Like it's oh my god. Like one of my good friends, Madam Parker, she's actually over there now. We talk, frequently, just a lot, and she tells me about like some of the touristy areas, like how they're kind of changing. And like there was even land that was really because they wanted to actually build like they wanted us, to buy up the actual lands to kind of like expand, and they were like, nah, that's not happening. And the people spoke, and because those lands are sacred, like they just can't. But yeah, New Zealand is just beautiful, and the culture, the people themselves, extremely amazing. It
No,
was it was the one time I went over and I went to a Wendy's in Christchurch, and I couldn't believe how much. I was like, yo, wait, a salad is how much? But yeah, but other than that, like, yeah, it's such a beautiful place. I love it.
so great. I love it.
Mhm.
Cardinal Sin goes on to say, Laser
Oh,
Bob, does
thank
that
you.
mean we won't be watching Farmer Giles of Ham? For those of you who don't know, Farmer Giles of Ham is a early J.R.R. Tolkien story. It's a medieval fable, sort
Mhm.
of, and it's if memory serves, it's about sort of how an everyman can rise to be a king if they want to.
Mhm.
And I can't remember. There's a dragon in it. The name of the dragon. I keep thinking the dragon from Dragon Slayer, the Vermithrax pejorative, but it's something like that. It's
Yeah.
Christophilix or something. There's a It's great, but it's a fun story. No, to answer your question, I don't think we're going to be seeing that, but it would be fun if we did.
And thank you for your generosity, Cardinal Sin. What is that, like 3 or 4
Yeah, I mean,
$20
I
super
always
chats?
worry. I always worry if Gil's like, I'm like, Gil, you're being very generous, and I know I've still got all the stuff that Dave Parker's going to sign next week. Don't think I don't. But I was worried. I'm like, is everything good there? But thank you so much. It's very nice of you.
Yeah.
Stubble McShave goes on to say, Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power production was forced out of New Zealand due to the COVID restrictions. That's true. The producers from
Mm.
Amazon were not able to visit the production in New Zealand. I understand why they want to be able to have oversight when they spend all that money. Well, that is true. I get it, but they also, it's not like it was not without. They started, they stopped, and yeah, there were COVID restrictions, but there were COVID restrictions everywhere too.
Yeah.
But it was far. I know the actors didn't want to be there for that long either, but still, I mean, we'll see. I mean, look, all of this could be moot if the show is the greatest show ever made. So
Which
we'll
it
have
could
to see.
be.
It could
It
be.
could be.
Crosstalk became a member of the channel. Thank you, Crosstalk. I appreciate
Yes.
it. Michael Preston says, good question, why does it matter the race, color, or gender in the new Lord of the Rings show? A good actor can play any part and make you believe they are the role. What do you guys think? Is that true?
I believe that.
I
Firmly
believe it
believe that.
too, as long as it's not historical and they don't do the right things for the historical part. But yes, I do believe it.
Yeah. I do too. It's all about characters and story.
Yep.
Stubble McShave goes on to say, I hope we get the real person in the Elvis movie and not the caricature that most people know. Well, yeah, I think with Baz Luhrmann, we're going to get some kind of a phantasmagoria, some crazy amalgamation of all of it, just judging from his past work. But yeah, I agree. I mean, hopefully it's good.
Mhm.
Claudia says,
Yes.
Rob, I prefer the New York City of When Harry Met Sally.
The
Amazon
90s.
Amazon doesn't have the rights to the Silmarillion. They do not. Nor to anything other than they only have The Hobbit and the 3 Lord of the Rings books and the appendices. That's it. Then this Lord of the Rings story is probably about the War of the Elves and Sauron in the Second Age, between the forging of the rings and the fall of Numenor. I'm sure that's exactly what it's about. There's so much more interesting stuff, though. It's weird. I mean, I don't know how you make a movie about the Second Age and not have all of the other tales, but you're probably right. They can only use what is referred to in the appendices and Lord of the Rings itself.
Charlie the Unicorn says, "I'll have what she's having."
Look, I love the New York City I love When Harry Met Sally. It's one of my favorite movies. Is there something wrong with my face? I love that. I love that movie so much. I mean, it's so. This stupid wagon wheel coffee table. I thought you liked it. I was being nice.
And Carrie Fisher was in it too.
So good. Oh, Carrie Fisher's like, when she has her notebook of men, she's like, "Oh, married," and she folds a little corner over so she knows that he's married.
That's right.
That. It's so good. I've seen that movie a million times. Cardinal Sin says, "Rob, I remember checking into a 5-star hotel on the Dead Sea and turning on the TV. The only thing that was on was a mesmerizing 1986 live show, I think in Germany, of Miles Davis. It was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. And that was about the time. I only saw Miles Davis once live at Bumpershoot, and that was when he was touring for Tutu, his album Tutu. And he actually, on that album, he covered Scritti Politi's Perfect Way, which I thought was crazy. So 86 would have been around that time. Glenn Mark says, "Hi, Rob, Lael, and Christchurchian here.
Yeah.
My bank account had been quite bare. Money is starting to dribble in again, so I'm back." Glenn Mark, but listen, man, you don't have to have money to come here. But I appreciate that you send the super chat.
Welcome back.
Come in, welcome back. We're happy to have you. Just hang out in the chat, hang out in the chat and chat while you're hanging out in the chat. But it's good to have you back. I hope all is good, and I hope Christchurch is good as well. I would love to come down. God, I want to go back. Lael, you know what? We should make enough money on YouTube where we can do like a world tour.
Yes.
And ultimately, the goal would be to go to Secret Base in Hong Kong. But
yeah.
but we should, like, how great would it be to like travel? We should go to Japan and to buy toys, and then we'll go down to New Zealand, and then Australia, where we'll hang out and with, of course, we'll see Justin and hang out in his house, and then we'll all go to see Ryan Kirkwood in Hong Kong, and we'll document the whole thing so we can write it all off. We just have to find somebody.
Bro, it's like it's like a collector's tour.
Yeah,
like literally a collector's tour.
I mean, like all the YouTubers, all the YouTube collectors. Would go do
like
this.
A road trip. Yeah, that'd be crazy. I'd love to do something like that.
By the way, I'm moving. I gotta send out the bank robber Joker's got to go out. I promised that was going out to our friend. He's got to have it.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I haven't forgotten. It's right over there.
Yeah.
It's right, he's gonna get it. He's just gonna one day he's gonna go to the mail and be like, "What the?" He's gonna get it. So, by the way, somebody, a fan, bought me the Blitzway or Enter Bay Elvis, and then Justin sent it to me, so that's cool. RRTNZ says, "Vermithrax, please do a Dragon Slayer stream." For those of you who don't know, well, hang on, wait, it's over here. Is it over here? Well, what?
He's looking for the shiny ball with the thing sticking out of it, right?
No, that's right here. I always have. This is the Phantasm ball.
Oh, Phantasm.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I have the I have Dragon Slayer on Blu-ray that was ripped, and it was put out as a bootleg by Stinky Tuna, the company Stinky Tuna. So I have that. I have 2 copies of it, but one of them is for Dieter. But yes, we should do a Dragon Slayer stream. But yes. Well, I want to throw it back to you because I don't want to keep you late. I wanted to finish this by midnight my time, which is where we usually started this. So we've got like 20 more minutes. But since I've got you here, I think this new time is good.
Yes, it is wonderful, Robert. I love it. Thank you so much for doing it.
Yeah, and this will be the new time that we do these shows. Starting at 9 p.m. our time here on the West Coast and midnight your time, because it's midnight somewhere. And, I would ask you back to the original topic. Do you have any more thoughts about all of this? I mean, I think we're all in agreement that we want great characters and great stories that are true to themselves and true to the characters that they're trying. Whatever messages that we're being given should be inherent in the stories themselves, because they're rooted in thousands of years of human experience. And I don't think modern agendas serve storytelling very well. Is that true?
I listen. I'm a fan of inclusion. I'm a super fan of inclusion, as long as when you're doing it for good reasons. There's no underhanding, and it doesn't cripple the narrative. You know what I mean? Like I'm all in for it, because it needs. Look, this is something that should have been in place years ago. You know what I mean? It's not something that should just be happening now. Like it should have been, and also not something that serves an agenda. Inclusion is basically all for us all as people in general, given that chance and opportunity. You know what I mean? So I'm all in for that. But I'm also I'm super in for good storytelling. For you basically for a story that serves the narrative's purpose. I'm all in for that. You know what I mean? And I just don't want, because the thing is, it's like we live in a very divisive world right now, man. Everything, every IP is divisive. And it's like, why, if you focus on just telling that story and you're not feeding, it's like, almost that these studios love controversy, and they know the most controversial thing you can
It's
actually
free
do.
marketing.
Exactly.
You get people triggered and talking about this stuff on Twitter. We are giving away tens of thousands, hundreds of, if not millions of dollars. I mean, people don't realize the studios would pay money. You can gin up some controversy, and all of us YouTubers are screaming and yelling, and people on Twitter are screaming. The studio's just kicking back going, hashtag money, money, money. They're talking about our product.
Exactly. And they're making money off of it while we're having this discussion.
We're giving it away for free.
Exactly. But I just want, again, I'll just reiterate, I'm super stoked for any type of or any level of inclusivity, that, whether culturally, whatever. But I just want a good story. Right about now, I just want a good story told. You know what I mean? And nothing that's going to compromise that. And I think that, like, there are a lot of even with our superheroes now, characters that are basically written in, and like, give us new heroes. There's so many different heroes out there and characters to be played. Like, just give us those. But it's just, I just, again, here's to the future. Here's for evolution, progressiveness. I just want to see that first. But again, I don't care. I am super for, and I'm not even against change, as long as that change isn't disruptive. And when it's disruptive and it just, causes division, that's when I'll check myself. I check out. I'm just really checked out against that. You know what I mean?
What about you?
Yeah, I agree with practically everything Lael said. And, I think that we have enough creators who want to have their work put, and made into productions, but they're not getting that attention. So rather than, force them into someone else's work, go ahead and invest in these other creators' work, so that we can get, those things going and see what's really out there, what we're missing, because those voices aren't being heard, and we need more Oscar categories. So, that's how I feel. I say, open it up. You feel that the production, there should be more people working on it and have more opportunities, and create those. But you don't have to take away other people's jobs. Just add more onto it, and do it that way. So there are ways to do this, and it doesn't have to mean that we have to get rid of people. That's not the way to go. We need those creatives there who are already doing a good job. And then go ahead and add, more interns. Go ahead and, just the sky's the limit. It doesn't even have to be, that feeling. And to be honest with you, these sets that we're seeing, and I'm not saying that this hasn't been the truth all along, but it seems like the sets that people are doing and the shows and productions they're doing, they're really like penny pinching a lot of stuff. So they don't have any, it's not incentivized to bring on additional employees in that way. So that's something else. Like economically, it's not it. It's just not easy to do because it's not economically rewarding to them to do. So I don't think it's right that someone should have to lose a position for someone else. Let's put those days behind us. Let's go ahead and just add on more people and make it so that people can benefit from it and we can learn from one another. So that's how I look at it.
The lovely Emma Bannon is here.
Emma.
She's one of my favorite people that I've never met, never face to face. One of my goals in 2022 is to stream with her regularly. We'll see. Emma says, my brother worked on the Lord of the Rings movies as a scenic artist and also on the Rings of Power series. He loved the movie trilogy, but one of his complaints about the Rings of Power series was that they were just, quote, throwing money at everything. Make of that what you will. See, I dread that when I hear about productions. Let's just throw money at it. No, you have to have the correct. People will take your money. They'll spend it. You have to know how and where to spend it. Throwing money at everything it's no way to make a TV show.
So are we going to see the documentary 20 years from now about how that was like the most expensive, TV series ever made, the most expensive?
It's beyond. I mean, they've spent so much money on. And here's the funny thing about it is, here's what I don't understand. I always go back to some movies like 12 Angry Men or the penultimate episode of Deep Space Nine's first season, an episode called Duet.
So good.
I mean, it's Kira and I think it's Harris Yulin in a room, talking to each other, and some of the great. You don't necessarily have to spend a bunch of money to create great entertainment. You don't, and it's frustrating.
And Benjamin Sisko figure has not come out yet.
No, and the pictures that I sent you can't show them to anybody.
I'm not. I don't do that. I don't share
Not
stuff
at all.
like that.
So speaking of godlike black men that I wish I could be, Benjamin Sisko, Captain Benjamin Sisko, the man, the hero of the Dominion War. I don't think he is magnificent in his splendor. When he shaved his head and grew the goatee, my God, what a man!
Spencer for hire.
Yes. But man, was he a badass in Deep Space?
He was wonderful.
So XO6, we have Mirror Spock, which should be out next month.
Yes.
We have Q, and they have been tremendous in getting their figures out. You pre-order them, and they're usually in hand in about 2 or 3 months, which is great.
It's Judge Q, right? It's Judge Q.
It's Judge Q from Encounter at Farpoint. Yep. Yep. And of course, Picard starts in March. But I keep getting teased, and that for those of you who don't know, yes, XO6 is. They already showed us one picture of Picard, but I was sent a photograph by somebody Lael and I both know, and I'm not going to say who. But he might have, apparently I don't want to get him in trouble, so he clearly accidentally slipped it into a message or an email or a DM, and I couldn't believe it. I'm like, oh, wow, they're making But maybe we'll be getting a Ben Sisko figure. I can't wait. Claudius says, so first of all, I have to say, I did post on my Instagram a picture of Daniel Radcliffe as Wolverine. This is a joke. It's not real. I thought people might understand that, but everyone's been like, oh my God, this was not real. As far as I know, Daniel Radcliffe is not playing. Although if you had our actor Alan, if you had Alan from Reacher playing Colossus, I believe he could throw Daniel Radcliffe if he had to.
Don't get me started on Reacher, Robert, because that's my favorite series so far this year, and I absolutely love it.
It's so good. Come on, man. So good.
He's great. Yeah. And he's the right body type. Like literally, I mean, he does such a, you know what? Did you like I saw an interview with him when he talked about like the grueling process of getting this role.
Yep.
and how he basically was, at first when he did it, they turned him down. I guess they told him was that the take wasn't something that they were looking for,
Yep.
and then they circled back around after they went a totally different direction and said, okay, now we want to work with you, and we want to put a spin on it. But he still had to audition like 8 times, actually just like 8 times after that, before he officially got the role. And mind you, it's the same guy who actually played Hawk. He was actually part of Hawk and Dove.
Yep.
On
he was Hawk.
He was Hawk on
And
the Titans.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he
so
was
now
Aquaman
it
in
makes sense
Smallville
why.
or something, right?
Yeah, and now it basically makes sense why they killed him off the show.
And he also played Aquaman once, right?
Yeah, he
Or
was
am I
on
wrong?
Smallville.
Yeah, in
Yes.
Smallville. I mean, and look, I mean, I can admire a beautiful man who has an incredible physique. That dude's physique, my God.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm a straight dude, but he can fuck. Come on. I mean, that guy, he is one. That body is unbelievable of his. I mean,
I am reviewing the series with Lorraine Creole. We are doing every single
I'll bet
episode.
you are. By the way,
and
tell
we're-
her hello for me. I love her.
I will tell her hello. And we're also doing a special series on, we're calling it, I think we're calling it The Toxic Male. And the idea of the series is that we're looking at attractive men and, women who admire attractive men.
So are we going to be on your show, Lael and I?
Yeah.
Maybe Lael can be on the show.
Let's go. Let's just jump on. Let's go. All right.
Well, I mean, I think that it's going to be worthwhile if you watch it. You would enjoy it, but it's definitely a new twist on this. And, I think that an actor like Alan Ritchson is, a very special person. And, why not go ahead and talk about these actors who are very talented. He spends a lot of time, I'm sure, keeping his physique a certain way.
Yeah.
And he just encapsulated Reacher in such a way. After listening to the Lee Child books on audiobook, this is that man. Even the quietness in his mind, the quietness that the Reacher character has in his mind, as he says, I've always learned that if, the police arrest you, you must always stay silent. And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, he's really thought this out. He's very methodical. This man is very intelligent.
He's a great, I mean, I've read those books. The Reacher books are great. Killing Floor is the first.
Yes.
I thought they did a great job. I loved all the actors. In Killing Floor, like he assaults that factory at the end by himself. I love the fact that they gave him a team. Those actors were great. I really enjoyed the characters so much. Claudius was going on. This is why I talked about Daniel Radcliffe. He says, Doctor Strange 2, at least Daniel Radcliffe is more height accurate for Wolverine. So Wolverine will have adamantium claws, enhanced healing, and an invisibility cloak. And the Eldar wand, he can go toe-to-toe with Wanda. Well, you know what? If Wolverine was a graduate of Hogwarts, I could see him doing that. I mean, after all, it was Agatha all along, and apparently, maybe Agatha in a different universe is Voldemort.
Wasn't one of the criticisms, maybe not criticism might be too hard, but wasn't one of the observations about Hugh Jackman, who's a beautiful man, a very attractive, very fit, beautiful man, playing Wolverine. The criticism was that Wolverine was supposed to be, I guess, maybe not as tall as Hugh Jackman.
Like 5 feet tall.
And he's not supposed to look like Hugh Jackman.
No.
He's not supposed to look like that.
I have to tell you, one of the discs that I produced special features for was X-Men 2. And so I was going back and forth to the set of X-Men 2. So I interviewed, one of the people I got to interview was Hugh Jackman. He is easily first of all, he's incredibly handsome in person, but he's also one of the most charismatic people I've ever met. Like he truly is the greatest showman. He's an amazing person, a really nice guy. Love what he was doing. So, yeah. But
we're going to probably talk about him too.
Oh, I'll bet you will. Miss Creel and you together in the same room, incendiary. I'll watch that. What's up with that? Cardinal Sin, he keeps coming on. You've been very nice. You've been very nice, Cardinal. Thank you so much. Laser Bob, listen to this. This is what Cardinal Sin says. I'd just like to say how sexy and intelligent your co-hosts are. Lael is incredibly foxy, and I find very intellectually stimulating. Keep up the good work, y'all. Love
Thank you,
all.
Cardinalson.
Oh man,
Gil,
appreciate that.
thank you
brother.
so much.
Thank you so
And
much.
the lovely Connie Sang says,
Appreciate that.
countdown to Alien. Connie is coming over to our house tomorrow to watch Alien for the very first time. She's never seen it.
Oh my God, she's never seen it?
Nope.
Oh my gosh.
Nope.
Oh my gosh. You're going to love it, Connie.
Connie
Countdown
will love it.
to
She's
Alien.
bringing whiskey and wine, which is all good.
Countdown.
Alien, I think Alien is actually a perfect movie. I think there are movies. I think Jaws is a perfect movie. Raiders is. Now I don't mean like people go, well, Rob, when the U-boat goes to the island where they open the ark. I mean, if it ever dove under the water, Indiana Jones hang. Look, that's not necessarily true because battery power. They wouldn't necessarily. There's no reason for them to dive. It's 1936. I thought about this. Just saying.
There you
Anyway,
go. There you
but
go.
those are like perfect movies. Star Wars is a perfect movie, I think. Not the special edition, the original version. Of
The
Star Wars.
original version of it, yeah.
Yeah. So Connie is going to experience Alien for the
love it.
first time. And
She's
you know
gonna
what's going to happen? We're watching. She's like, can we watch Aliens next?
Yes.
And I'll say,
Mhm.
yes, Connie.
Yeah.
Yes, we
And
can.
she
The
will love
answer is
it. Let's
always
go.
Yes, we
Let's
can.
Might as well.
predictions, and she will love it.
Cardinalson keeps throwing in super chats, dude. He's gonna wake
Oh
up.
my
He's gonna
goodness.
wake up
Cardinalson.
like with a bottle in his hand, going, "What did I do last
We
night?"
love
What did I
you.
just do? What
We
did I
love
just
you,
do?
Thank you, Cardinalson. I
Yeah, right,
appreciate that.
Leo.
Cardinalson says, if you want a Benjamin Sisko figure, I can steer you toward Andy Masterson, who does amazing head sculpts and costumes for the 6-scale handmade figures. I agree with you there, but I have to say, XO6 is they're only making high-end Star Trek figures, and I think they pretty much hit it out of the park with.
Like they're killing it.
They really are, and I never thought I'd get excited to buy a Janeway figure, but I was, and the fact that I'm like, oh my God, she comes with her coffee cup. That's amazing.
That was very clever because she always had it in her hand. It was
That's
like
so good.
you had to have that morning Joe. So,
good.
Yeah.
So good. I mean, I'm looking at this stack of, dude, I have a stack of boxes of figures that I haven't opened. It's insane.
I almost wonder if that coffee was actually Kate Mulgrew. You know what I mean? Like,
Ooh.
I'm sure it was written but I have a feeling
No, I bet
that
it was her.
Yeah, I have a feeling it was her. I mean, it'd be an interesting question, but.
Cardinal Sin just sent in another super chat, and he says, Avery Brooks was ready to turn the part of Sisko down, and his wife talked him into it. A little known fact. I didn't know that.
Okay.
He was
I'm glad she
perfect.
did. I'm certainly glad she did that.
Yeah, he was perfect for this role.
Yeah,
Also,
hell yeah.
another very attractive man that we should talk about.
He is a very and how about the fact that I've often said this, but a black man, a single father who loves his son, they have one of the great father-son relationships in television history.
Yes, they do.
And I don't think it's the fourth season Deep Space Nine episode, The Visitor, where Tony Todd plays Elder Jake Sisko.
Yes.
And it's one of the most devastating and emotional hours of science fiction television ever.
Yeah.
It's so good. And, the show, I dearly love Deep Space Nine. But it's one of the great shows of all time. And it's my second favorite Star Trek show after the original.
I love Deep Space Nine, man.
So
It's my absolute favorite Star Trek series. It's
I can see that.
one
Definitely.
for me.
Wait a minute. Stub McShave says, I wondered if you were going to read my letter on raunchy Star Wars lines. You didn't get to Yoda saying, "Come, good food though." Okay. I don't know if you saw my show yesterday. Probably not. So I'm going to call this up because you guys got to hear this if you didn't. So Stubble McShave, you know what? I'm gonna bring it up again. I know that I know I did it yesterday, but so Stubble McShave writes this letter, and I did it last night. but I'm going to do it again because why not? Stubble, who lives in Sweden, our ultimate Wheel of Time fan, writes me this letter.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Rob. So a bit of a different letter this time. It's time to get silly. I read an article way back, and I can't find it again. If I had found it, I would have sent you the link or in a tweet or something like that. Instead, I decided to write a letter on the topic. The topic is the raunchy lines of dialogue from Star Wars when they're taken out of context. I must first put up a warning. This may alter the way you watch the Star Wars movies, and it may affect your enjoyment of them. So read and listen to this at your own risk. Now, Rob, I need you to channel your inner Biggs Darklighter and say these lines from Star Wars movies out of context in the most suggestive and sleazy way possible. All right, here it goes. So here's what I'm going to do. You guys on Facebook, I'm going to send you each. Lael, who wants Empire Strikes Back?
Me.
Okay, I'm going to send it on Facebook right now. I'm going to send you these lines of dialogue that Stubble has sent us from The Empire Strikes Back. And you're going to say them. I'm going to call upon you to channel your actor, your inner actor I know is there. And I'm sending you these dialogue. So you get, do you want Star Wars or Jedi?
I'll take Star Wars.
Okay, good, because I already did Star Wars and I can't wait. By the way, I would pay you, and I will. To be fair, I'm going to pay you to do this, and I'm going to send this to you on Facebook. Hang on.
Okay. All right.
I'm going to send you these lines of dialogue, but I want you. I think I did this already once, so I've sent you the lines of dialogue.
Wow.
Now, we're supposed to say them in the sleaziest way possible to take them out of context. So now I'm doing Jedi. So I'm going to do Jedi, and I'm going to say it in the sleaziest or most lascivious way possible to get us started. And here's my line from Jedi that he's given me to say. Back door, huh? Good idea. So there's the line. There you go. There's my line. So I want you to just pick a line that I've sent you to say in the sleaziest and most lascivious way possible. Out of context. Don't make it sound like the movie. But just say a line of dialogue from Empire. And I know you.
Yes.
Give it your best shot.
Luke, at that speed, do you think you'll be able to pull out in time? I think I've actually said that before.
Oh, I guarantee you have. That was pretty good. I like that you said it with disdain. I mean, as if he's going. What I got from you is that he's going too fast. You're like, really?
He is.
You're going that fast? I'm thinking, what about my pleasure? Like, why don't you slow it down, buddy? Make sure that, I love the way you said it. All right, Lael, you are up.
Okay. Let's see what I chose.
By the way, if Latoya is watching now, hopefully she's asleep.
She's probably, I don't know. She's probably up.
I hope you didn't
Let's
hear
see.
that.
What do we got? Let's see here. Okay. All right. All right.
The most sleazy and lascivious way possible. Lay it on us.
All right. Okay. Here we go. Okay. There's a awful lot of moisture in here.
That was pretty good. All right. We don't have to do them all, but I got to get another one from you.
Look at the size of that thing.
Way to make me feel inadequate. Thanks a lot for that.
Yo.
So, Lael.
Wait a minute. Let me see. Okay. All right. Hold on. Let's see here. Wait a minute. It said. Okay. Here we go.
Mhm.
All right. Here we go. Size matters not. Judge me by my size, do you?
And we do.
All right.
Nicely done.
Crazy. Yeah,
Nicely
that's
done.
crazy.
Let's see. I got one. Okay, since I'm doing Jedi. You want this, don't you?
Yes.
Oh, I know. Take your Jedi weapon. All right, Lael.
Let me see here. What do we have?
And you know, if you want to go first, you got Star Wars. You got the most.
Well, I do have one.
Okay, I have one. You go ahead.
Okay,
You
go
go
ahead.
first.
Oh, you want me to go first?
Yeah, you go
Okay.
first.
All right, I'll go first. Myself, the boy, 2 droids, and no questions asked.
That sounds like a fun night.
Oh, it will be.
Wow. I will never let this taint my view of these films at all. I won't. Let's see here. Okay, here we go. That this could be taken from a male's perspective. This could be taken any type of way,
No judgment.
especially if we say it right. This could be taken any
No
type of way.
judgment.
No, I'm saying like if you're saying this to a woman, you liable to get smacked. Anyway, let me see here. All right, here we go. And I thought they smelled bad on the outside.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like if you say
Wow.
that, you must get punched in the face, bro.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Wow. Crazy, right? Crazy.
I don't know.
Man.
Would you guys do one more?
Let
Sure.
me see. Do I have? Let me see what I got.
Okay. I'll do one from Jedi. I'll do one from Jedi. So, you have a twin sister. Obi-Wan was wise to hide her from me.
Okay. Let me see. Nah, I can't do that one.
Come on,
I can't do
dude.
that one.
That means you
I
have
can't
to
do
do
that
it.
one.
You have to do it.
Hold up. I'm trying to find. Because hold on. Let me see here.
SpongeBob
okay.
Squareball says, Lael, did you just say taint? He did, actually. He did say taint.
Okay, here we go. All right, here we go. All right, and okay. I thought that Harry Beast would be the end of me. Yeah, that's crazy.
Stubble, man. The thing is, Stubble has watched the movie and he's sent us these lines of dialogue. So
Yeah,
Thank you so much, Stubble.
yeah. Stubble's crazy, man.
So I'll let you take it home.
You came in that thing?
Oh, boy. Wow. I think
crazy.
that is a perfect capper. And Stubble, that's what you wanted, though, didn't you? S Beam, our man S Beam sends in a super chat. Shout out to S Beam, who, by the way, made this graphic for the show, the Burnettwork's Midnight Musings. He actually made this graphic. Thanks to S Beam for making this graphic. Thanks for supporting the channel in many different ways. That was very cool of you. So thank you very much. Thank you, S-Beam. And S-Beam is also an action figure customizer. One day I'm going to see an action figure he's making of me, of us, of everyone. So thank you for that. And he's got a great collection himself, a member, an imagination connoisseur par excellence.
And we will be seeing his interview that I did with him for PGS All-Stars
Yep. Yes, you
on the
will.
network.
Mm-hmm. And you're going to see more from you on the network, which is good.
Yes, you will.
Yeah, I'll see. You talk like that. Yeah.
I can't help it now because now you've got me in this mindset from the Star Wars, legacy.
Oh,
now
I know. Think about it. Now let's blow this thing and go home. Yeah, it's terrible. RRTNZ says, okay then, team, better final episode, TNG or DS9? For me, I gotta go TNG. You know what? What You Leave Behind is a great episode, but All Good Things is one of the great episodes of TV.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna go with DS9. But the Next Generation was still good, but I felt like DS9 reinvigorated the series for me.
Yeah.
So that's something that while I did enjoy the Next Generation, I didn't get that necessarily from a very good series, but I didn't have that same feeling from it. So
I think Next Generation was a good start to what we were going to get. I think it was a good opening to Deep Space Nine.
Mm-hmm.
Because it opened up the possibility of us getting when they announced that they were doing it, I didn't know how to take it. I was like, okay, well, all right, let's see, but once we got it, I was like, yo, like, it was such a smart idea to have, now that's a demonstration of how to write a story that would represent modern times when it comes to humanity.
Yep.
That was a good representation of that's the way you write a story, because
100%.
You're not forcing it. You're allowing us to see it, us to view it and draw our own conclusion, and we'll be like, oh wow, this is what they were trying to do.
Totally.
Instead of basically just saying, okay, now I see. All right, I know what you're doing. Like you're blatantly doing. It wasn't blatant. It was a well-written story, but you can equate it to your own life. You know what I mean? So I loved it.
I completely agree with you. I mean, it was. Look, I love Deep Space Nine so much, and I think the 6th season of Deep Space Nine in particular is probably the best, most consistent season of all of the Berman era Treks. It's an amazing season of TV. It's really, really, really good.
Definitely.
Terrific. And Deep Space Nine was doing diversity before anyone had to draw attention to it. I mean, what a cast of all different kinds of people. Really, really great.
And they incorporated characters from the Next Generation, which I also loved. Like, I've never seen anything like I guess I wouldn't necessarily call it a crossover, but it felt like it had an element of that to it, and it really kind of binded it together for me.
Yeah, there was continuity. I mean, you had O'Brien and then Worf. That were they brought them over. It worked great, and you really felt it like you were watching part of the same universe.
Yes.
One of the things that I really can't stand about Star Trek Discovery is there is no effort at all made to caress the show into Star Trek continuity. They're like, well, it's a visual reboot. It's like, no, it's a whole different. It doesn't look or feel like anything we've seen, and it's supposed to predate Kirk. And now we're getting a Strange New World series where a descendant of Khan Noonien Singh happens to be on the Enterprise 10 years before they find Khan himself. Like, who thought that was a good idea? And in case, let's have Lieutenant Uhura, and she's Cadet Uhura, and let's give her trauma. Her family was killed in a shuttle accident. It's like all of modern Star Trek. They're Spock, he's saddled with a learning disability. Uhura has trauma because her family died. Dr. Mbenga, Nurse Chapel. It's like, it's so creatively bankrupt.
I'm sorry. I'm your enabler. I'm sorry.
No, but I just, if you're going to introduce Lieutenant Uhura as a cadet, It is so easy. Like these writers are they're so uncreative that they fall back on the trauma trope with every single character. And it is such terrible writing. It's so lazy. Uhura's parents are killed. And in Strange New Worlds, her parents die, and they're gonna make it. Well, she. I don't know why I'm here. I need to be convinced to come back and be on the ship. It's so stupid. It's so like the Star Trek that I loved, that I fell in love with. All of the people wanted to be there because you needed to be the best of humanity to be on a starship. Starfleet weeded you out. You needed to be in the top 1% of the top 1%. That was the whole point. And what they've done is they've turned Star Trek into every kid gets a trophy. It used to be about the best of the best, like what, and now it's like no, everybody has a place on a starship, and I'm like, really? No, they don't. They don't. It's a meritocracy, and it's the highest level of meritocracy, and it doesn't care about your color. It doesn't care about your beliefs. It doesn't care about your sexuality. You need to be the very best of the very best, and if you're not on a starship. Period. And I like that. I never thought of that as being elitism. I look. The fact is, most human beings, to be honest, are not at the top 1% of the 1%. We lead lives of quiet desperation, and Star Trek was about the very best of us. That was one of the things that was inspirational. The fact that I would never be one of them didn't bother me, because I love the fact that somebody would be up there, that humanity prevailed. And now it's like, well, you can't say that. Claudius says, speaking of diverse perspectives, I watched Avery Brooks play King Lear at the Yale Repertory Theater in 2004. It was an African-American cast and set in Olmecs, Mesoamerica, like Midnight Musings. A great production.
Oh,
Hey.
thank you.
That actually, that sounds really, really good. I would love to have seen that. That sounds really good, actually. SpongeBob Square Balls says, Lael. Oh, I already said that. You said Tank. Read that one already. And Cardinal, I hope you haven't gone crazy. But thank you so much for supporting the channel like this. It's very nice of you. He says, you could do this every day, and I would never get tired of it.
Aww.
Well, that's very nice of you to say, but I can't impose on the two lovely co-hosts I have on the show because they have other shows to make. They've got their own perspectives, and I just feel greatly honored to have the two of you here. I think this iteration of this show is where we should be. Midnight Musings, having topics of the day that are personal and interesting, and this is the way the show should be, and it should start at 9:00 Pacific time.
Yes, this is the way. And Robert, is there a member chat for Tom Jr. Jackson? I thought I saw it earlier. It's like a member. It's like a member something.
Oh, that's funny because those don't show up for me, but they
don't.
They don't show up on Stream Elements, but they show up in the live chat. But the thing is, the live chat goes on. Yes, there is Tom Jr. Jackson, who is, by the way, as we all know, he coined the phrase, we are all goof people.
We are all goof people.
Who's Tom Jr. Jackson, one of the kindest souls I have ever met. He's been a member for 17 months of the channel. He's a PGS hero. He says, great show, Rob and Lael. Great show. Rob and Lael brought up some great points, and was awesome as always. You guys make a great team. Well, you know what, Tom?
Thank you.
You add to our team.
Yes.
Which is great. And so and S-Beam sent a I didn't realize it was a sticker. I don't know everyone knows the stickers. I don't know. This is just
a thumbs up. It's good. Creature. Thank you, S-Beam.
Well, listen, kids. Oh, Cardinalson sent in another super chat.
Yes,
said, Rob, it would be so easy to write a Star Trek show that simply follows another crew on another ship. We'd all watch it. And if it was good, we'd all like it. You know what, though? What I find really interesting is that Star Trek was always a reflection of its time. The problem is I don't feel that Star Trek is actually reflecting the time we're in. It's reflecting the time that the writers of the show believe they're living in.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like that. And I think we know more about the universe that we live in than ever before. And Star Trek Discovery and Star Trek Picard are just out and out fantasies. There's very little plausibility in what they're doing. And the vision they have of future AI is very limited and very elementary school, and it drives me crazy. So it's no Deep Space Nine.
No.
I wish it were.
Unfortunately.
Well, boys and girls, gentle beings, kind souls, Lael, Rockwell. I think it's time to end this because I got to walk my dogs. They're like, "Where are you, Rob? You're supposed to walk us almost 2 hours ago." But that's okay. They'll be fine. I'm going to walk them. Both of you guys are killing it on YouTube. Everybody should subscribe to your channels. First of all, what is your channel? Where can people find you on YouTube, and what do you have coming up?
Yes, my channel is called Positive Fandom on YouTube, and I'm also on Twitch, one word, Positive Fandom, where I do reviews and live streams and more. On Monday nights, you can find me on Toxic Femininity with Lorena Creole. On Wednesdays and Thursdays, you can find me on the 6 Scale Man Network with Lael. Sometimes on Say What, but always on Uncivilized Scoundrels.
Yes.
On Friday afternoons, you can find me at 12 p.m. Eastern on Midnight's Edge in the morning with Tom and Andre and Cameron Pasha. On Friday nights, you can usually find me here on the Burnettwork on Midnight Musings. Also, we're going to be airing a lot of PGS All-Stars and PGS reviews. And on Sundays, you can find me on my channel on Positive Fandom for my Sunday brunch show, live at 10:30 a.m., where we do the parlay of all the good fandom stuff that we love to talk about. So please check it out.
Lael, the 1/6 scale man. I mean, you have been crushing it on YouTube.
Having some fun.
You've been having so much fun. Your shows are great. You set the tone. You call me a smooth man. No, I got nothing. I got nothing on you.
Come
sir.
on, man. No, I'm learning from the best. I'm learning from the best.
No, I think that isn't true. I look at you and I'm like,
smoother than silver, bro. Smoother than silver.
That guy.
Come on, man.
But we're all part of the same team. But now, what have you got coming up? You got a lot of different shows going on, a lot of good stuff happening.
Yeah. So tomorrow we actually will be taking take your position over to Iron Logan's channel. We do it back and forth. Like I'll do it on my channel, we'll do it on his channel. So tomorrow we'll be on his channel, which means less work for me preparing. I'm so happy I just get to show up. But we'll be doing take a position tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. That'll be around 4:30 Eastern time, my time, that is. So definitely tune in for that, where we just take figures, pose them up. We just show you how to pose and have some fun. So stay tuned for that. On Mondays, we have Comic Book Talk with Friends, where we just kind of deep dive into the lore and the world of comics, no matter what it's from, just to kind of test your knowledge and give you knowledge. So we're happy about doing that. Now, are we doing Justin's show tomorrow?
Yes. I'm supposed to do a podcast with him, but I think we are. I think we're just moving it over. So yes. Yeah,
so we'll be doing Justin's show tomorrow. So, basically see you there. Also on Wednesday, of course, we'll be doing Say What. We'll be it's everything, 1/6 scale, figure talk, statues, whatever it is, pop culture. We'll actually be there to talk about it on that show. Thursday nights, back here with we'll actually have Uncivilized Scoundrel. We'll be talking any and everything Star Wars. So stay tuned for that. I'm excited about that show. And then also the new show, which is Figure Flex Friday, which is actually taking
which I've been enjoying.
Yeah, it's been so much fun, man, because what we're doing basically right now, and the Luminara actually put this out, so I have to give her 100% credit for this. So what she basically posed the idea was getting more involvement. So basically, we have turned Figure Flex Friday into more of a fan show. To whereas basically what we do is we just post it out there to the chat, have them actually hashtag and tag us with photos, and then we just pull it up and we'll just showcase their photos, their figure flex. So we're going to turn it, we're going to actually go that route. So not only are we going to be flexing, but we actually give the fans a chance to actually flex. So we just pull up their photos, whether it's on IG, Facebook, however it's actually sent to us, we'll just post it, give them credit, and just watch them flex. It's been so much fun. It's been well received. So that's every Friday night around now 7 o'clock Eastern as well. And yeah, that's basically the gist of it. I'll actually be unboxing a few figures. I've actually just shot my video for the Boba Fett double pack. So I'll have that up.
You've been killing it with pictures of those figures. I've been enjoying.
Oh my God, man. I've been having so much fun testing it out just to kind of see how it would actually work, man. I just love doing it. So yeah, man. And then back here on Friday nights, come on, man. You know what time it is.
This is I have to say, the two of you, this is a terrific stream.
Yes, it's incredible, man.
This is exactly the kind of thing that I want to do. I couldn't think of two better co-hosts on this show. This was exactly what I want. I mean, I want to be positive but be provocative at the same time, and thoughtful. And this is great. Midnight Musings, that's what it is. That's where we're at. And we're continuing a tradition. Not that Midnight Metal is dead. Dave Parker and I are going to come back on Midnight Metal next week to talk about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise because Netflix dropped their. The first movie I ever worked on was Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. I got my first screen credit on that. I am of the opinion that there was one good Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, and it was the first one in the mid-'70s, and it's a silly franchise to try and keep reviving. I don't know why they keep doing it. It is not fun. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is not fun. Nightmare on Elm Street, fun. Friday the 13th can be fun. Halloween can be fun. Texas Chainsaw, there's no fun in that. Ultimately, you might have some good kills or something, but the underlying philosophy of that franchise is not fantasy. It's just horrible human beings being even more horrible to other human beings. It's anti-human. It's antithetical, and that's why to life, and that's why the first Texas Chainsaw is such an important film. And it's in terms of the annals of verisimilitude, one of the greats. And I love the original film, and I hate all the sequels, even though I worked on one. So we're going to talk about that with Dave Parker next week. But you two lovely folks, this was a great show. This is exactly what I wanted it to be. And I want to thank you for your thoughtful participation and for being here. And for everybody that supported the channel generously via Super Chats. I think I'm going to have to write Cardinal Sin a check tomorrow and be like, hey, man, that was very nice of you. But thank you very much. Thanks for everybody who supported the channel via Super Chats and tips. I want to thank Tom Jr. Jackson for moderating. I don't.
And Darren Seeley
and
Brian Hepburn. He was earlier,
Well, thank you guys for being here. Thanks to the moderators doing what you do.
Brian Hepburn as well, and I moderated too. And Cardinal Sin has his own channel as well on YouTube.
Yeah, I was going to say that Gil does have his own channel, and he does other midnight shows on his own that are worth checking out. So check that out.
Stay tuned.
And go to his channel, find Cardinal Sin. And they've done some good shows. I actually enjoy their content as well.
He does a show it's 12 hours long, Robert, where he talks about science fiction, and it's really intense.
It's crazy. Even I have not gone that long. I'm approaching. I have 8 episodes until I hit my 800th episode of Robservations, and even I don't know if I can last 800 minutes. We shall see. But it's coming. It's coming. It'll be probably in March. Maybe for the Ides of March will be my 800th show.
Wow. Looking forward to that, Robert.
Yeah, it'll be pretty fun. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, kind souls, gentle beings, however you identify across these are the 28 known galaxies, the Midnight Musings are now drifting off into slumberland. So
Yes,
our
yes.
musings will turn into dreams, and I hope all of your musings turn into dreams as well. I want to thank my cohorts, my partners in crime, for being the greatest collection of, well, just great people. So thank you for being here, and a
Ditto.
great show.
Yes.
And on that note, Midnight Musings, episode 3, or really the first episode of Midnight Musings, that really is. I think it's solidified into what's going to be. We will see you here next week at 9 p.m. Pacific time.
Yes, yes. Let's go.
On Friday, right, Robert?
Friday. Yes, it's going to be Friday. That's right.
Yes, yes, Friday.
Yeah,
Definitely.
normally it'll be Fridays. I know this was Saturday. It's now Sunday. We're going to do it on Fridays.
There you go.
Just like Rebecca Black sang
ready.
on Friday. We're going to do that. So on that note, remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And with that note, we say have a better day. And of course, it would help. I wasn't ready to stop the stream.